Yes, indeed, folks. Happy Bobby Roode Day. It's finally arrived. It's been requested for years, right? He's one of the most relevant, topical wrestlers on earth today. He's the famed producer of your favorite WrestleMania main events. Um, is here. Bobby Roode Day in the late night Grin universe. We're thrilled to be back with another Grin Grappler. This one we've all been looking forward to since we locked it in last month. It was a big upset last month, right? When we went in this direction. So we are thrilled to be here. It's also a big night in the land of NXT. I'm of course referencing another win for the Good Brothers with that reference. Expert panel as always. The Grin Grappler 4 back again. Bobby, you missed last month. Back in the hot seat, brother. How you feeling tonight?
I'm excited. It's nice to be back. You miss a month, and it feels like we haven't done one of these in a while. But same time period every time. But I got my mic plugged in this time, so we're off to a better start than Friday, and excited to talk about Bobby Roode.
What a show Friday was, by the way.
It was.
What a program. Jack Crosby went rogue, I think it's fair to say.
Did.
Really.
He's a loose cannon.
Are you aware of his Candice LeRae take from Friday?
His what?
I swear, without any real prompts, Oracle was previewing the tag title match, the women's tag title match, and Jack Crosby just yelled, Candice LeRae is the best women's wrestler in the world.
All right. Jack and I DM pretty much every day just about the worlds of shoot fighting and whatnot, and I hadn't realized he had lost his marbles, so I'm going to need to do a wellness check on that guy.
And his eyes were wide. It was very colorful content, but nonetheless, revisit that, folks. It was quite the show on Friday, but we're here for Bob Roode. Contrarian Alex back on the Late Night Grin. How are you, brother?
Happy to be here. Very happy to be here. It's something at this point, we're 2 years deep. It's a monthly a standing appointment I look forward to. Sadly, I don't have a Bob Roode action figure to show off, and there will be a physical media appearance, but I couldn't find my there was a Best of Beer Money DVD that I was going to proudly show off. And it must be in storage or something, because you know me, I don't get rid of anything, but hilariously, I was thinking like maybe it would have the beer money match we covered on here, and it did not. The lineup for that would stress the meaning of best of. But yeah, I'm happy to be here.
America versus.
It was a lot of British Invasion Team 3D stuff. So yeah, but no, happy to be here. Always a swell time with the lads, and anyone who's listening in the chat, welcome. Let's get glorious.
You've intrigued me now with this action figure talk. Bob Roode must have been represented in action figure form, right? There has to have been. Did they do a glorious Bob Roode? They have to have done a glorious.
They have an entrance great glorious Bob Roode that I say limited, but I think they maybe did a dozen figures that came with specific entrance gear, and it would play like it came with like a little speaker that played the music. And the packaging of Bob Roode is his back is to the window, and he's doing the pose with like the glorious robe on. I know he had to have had at least one TNA figure also, and I'm sure he got some basics in the WWF, but that's the one that always immediately comes to mind.
I'm going to research this. This intrigued me. Okay, Lord Oracle. Back once again, you were on that Friday show. You were on the Friday show before. You're back to being the workhorse of this platform. How are you this evening?
I'm good, but as I look at the pay-per-view schedule for the summer, there's a handful of those that I might be MIA, including Clash of the Castle. But I'm gonna try to make the town. Even if I come in a little bit late or.
Brother, when I saw that main event graphic, I let out audibly a Hogan hoof. Just passionate Martinez, Drew McIntyre in a situation.
That's rough, man. Raw was rough last night. I'm not gonna lie.
They're probably gonna have Drew lose again in Glasgow, and then it's gonna be like, what's gonna be the
Gunther
return?
And Priest doesn't interest me either. At SummerSlam, Priest, man, it's Priest. Like, I honestly don't think like. Gunther's awesome, but I don't know. I don't know. Like,
it's a weird style matchup, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a weird style matchup. I don't know. That Randy match was fucking awesome until the finish.
Oh, it was very.
I wonder if Randy did that on purpose.
I honestly don't think so, but I'm willing to rock with it because it pops me.
Yeah.
Oracle, you're burying the lead though of the summer of wrestling. We have main eventer heel Liv Morgan to look forward to.
That's right. Yeah. Someone asked him, who are the many faces that are going to be?
Well,
They'll
Candice
probably
LeRae.
make the Lyra title match, right?
lest we forget the big story of the WWF summer. The big man is back. There he is.
God.
There you go.
Can't wait till he throws those.
Oh God.
So you're doing good. that's the conclusion, Oracle. Things are going well. You're doing good. Alex, I have images in terms of action figure Bob Roode representation. Look at this one. It Factor Bob Roode, TNA
still
World
with the long
Champion.
hair.
Look at that. They even got like the hard, rough look of Bobby Roode on the.
Just before he cut the hair, that would probably be the first couple months as champ, right?
From that line with that packaging, the Deluxe Impact one, I think the rarest one, and this is just so funny, is highly problematic regular Instagram poster Brooke Tessmacher. She's like the rarest action figure that to track down from that.
Yeah. Well,
it comes with like a thought bubble in her head, and she said vaccines cause autism. Like that's what it says.
Just with her Instagram, just look at the photos. Don't read anything.
Here we have another NXT
Okay.
Bob Roode right here.
They made I love that packaging, and they did a revival set with that NXT packaging.
They did an Athena too, right? Didn't they do an Ember? Yeah, I didn't have the Ember. Anyway, there's the action figure business handled, folks. This is Green Grappler, Bobby Roode. I would like to know before we get rocking here, why is this Bobby Roode Day? It's because over on the Joe Holbert Promotions channel, Tope Suicida and I dropped a new match review collaboration. I reviewed Bobby Roode and Roderick Strong from 2017 NXT TV, one of my personal favorites. Go check that out. It's linked below. But we have a lot to get into tonight. We have matches spanning, what we're looking at here, 14 years, right?
19.
19?
Final
19?
Resolution 2005.
But we didn't end in 24, bro. We're good. I'm spanning here.
I'm sorry. We begin by going back 99 years, but spanning. Yeah.
You confused me so much. I was like, how long has TNA existed? But yes, we head back 19. We head back very far is the point, folks. 19 years is how far we're heading back. We are going to go across, the pre-Beer Money and Team Canada, the brief singles run there when he was doing kind of the Wall Street gimmick. We have the Beer Money stuff being represented in the center act, and then of course we have the WWE run to close it out. One main roster match, one NXT match, and we'll cover everything in between. I have no doubt. It should be noted, of course, recently, to return to Alex's timeline from a moment ago, Bob Roode, he was in the news momentarily there a couple months back as he kind of confirmed that while he could physically get back in the ring, his days as a full-time grappler are over, which, I mean, it makes sense, right? I think he's turned 48 this month, I believe. So in that way, I guess this is as topical as it will ever be. So, that in mind, let's get started as we always do. Let's talk about our fandoms of the grappler of the month, Bobby Roode, Bob O'Neill. Tell us, when did you become a Bob Roode fan, if you ever did, and then talk us through it. Go for it.
Yeah, I don't know that I was necessarily a fan, when I was watching TNA when they were still on Fox Sports Net, but he's a guy that I definitely remembered. Team Canada was made an impact on me. It was a funny little group, and kind of over the years, he's a guy where I wasn't keeping up with TNA, but you'd see the results and stuff and be like, oh, he's still around. He's still excelling there. And then it wasn't really till he got to NXT where it was like, oh, he's legitimately great. And, I'm kind of glad because I missed a lot of the, mid 2010s TNA stuff that we watched today. That was excellent. So.
Yeah, that was kind of his peak in the company, right? And I think this is something we're going to talk about here today. Bobby is a victim of his two signature singles runs taking places in spots where they wasn't necessarily either wasn't seen a lot or it's very quickly forgotten because of the context, right? I think it's fair to say if you look at 2012 TNA, 2017 NXT, there are different limitations there that have allowed them to kind of, I think, in some ways slip through the cracks of history. We don't allow that here at the Grin Grappler. We're gonna chronicle that tonight. Contrarian Alex, you are the resident TNA stan here. Oracle may push back on that slightly, but I think that's official. So I'm intrigued in this. You must have seen an awful lot of Bobby Roode's kind of emergence on the national stage. Talk to us about it.
Absolutely. I'm trying to see if I can't find the date here of the first TNA show on FSN. But I think I've told this story on here before. The debut broadcast of TNA on FSN was at 2 or 3 p.m. Central Time. I was still in high school. I cut out early and skipped school to go home and watch the TNA debut on FSN. And the opening match was a 6-man tag with Team Canada, Bob Roode, Petey Williams, and I assume Johnny Devine, maybe Eric Young, against Amazing Red, Sanjay Dutt, and I want to say perennial that guy of the early TNA days, Jarrell Clark, who was the first guy I saw do a 630. But anyway, so yeah, it was just Team Canada is the introduction to him, and he was kind of like the original Team Canada of Petey, Eric Young, Bob Roode, and Johnny Devine. In that, Roode was kind of the muscle, and then when they brought in that bodybuilder dude, A1, tried to make him the muscle. Yeah. I remember my initial thought was like, we're still trying to, conjure up heat based on like Canadians thinking they're better than us. And then quickly didn't care because their matches were all so good. And the first thing that comes to mind of like early memories of Bobby Roode was his finisher at the time was called the Northern Lariat, which he did a lariat to the back of the guy's head, which we see in our first match here. There's some guys he would just flatten with that. And then obviously, that's probably not the smartest move long-term wise. So that got abandoned. But I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, holy shit. And then he had some singles work. I don't know if y'all remember when he like branched off and he became like the Wall Street character. They did like a month's worth of build to who his manager was going to be. And they brought in like Heenan, Colonel Rob Parker, Sherry might have even gotten a cameo in that.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. But they just, paid for 30 seconds of TV time from these folks. And then I remember thinking that he didn't seem fully comfortable in that like I'm rich role. But then that transitioned itself really well into the beer money thing because he was able to have a bit more fun there and like, a bit more goofy from time to time. And beer money, like that was like the hottest act TNA had for a moment. I remember going to one of their house shows in 2011. And that was like the two things I remember crowd reaction wise was how over beer money was, and not just like, it wasn't just the chant, the yeet of its day, beer money. It's that and people, I remember also people like were trying to hop the rail to kill Bully Ray because he still could figure out how to get heat off people, but or from. And then when he became like the main eventer, I remember that it was like him and AJ were the only that I can recall guys that TNA were able to present against the Stings, the Angles, the Jeff Hardys, and it was like, yeah, that makes sense. Like they don't seem like a knockoff B tier wrestler. Like, and so his run in 2012, like up into the belt, there was that weird detour where he should have beat Kurt Angle and didn't for whatever reason, brother. But when he finally got it and then he had the robe and adopted the act and he got the short haircut. And it was just like, I remember Slammiversary 2012. I've talked about being at that show before. And like when he came out for the main event, it felt like the world champion was here. Like talk about a guy, and I'm sure we'll talk about this more retrospectively, but he got the idea of presenting himself as a star a lot better than many of his contemporaries and a lot better than a lot of the folks today, which is why when he finally did come to NXT, he wasn't like one of those guys like AJ who had a sabbatical from TNA and then showed up back in WWE. He was like the last great guy from TNA that was like, man, I wonder what he could do in a different atmosphere or on a different scale. And then we saw what he could do. And to the shock of absolutely no one, Triple H fell in love with him as a wrestler and the presentation of him, and had we'll talk about it in Act 3, but a very, very compelling run in NXT that like I hope does not go underappreciated. And then sadly he got to the main roster, and there was still a madman at the helm that of course didn't see anything in Bobby Roode. But yeah, just a star. That's kind of what I think of when it comes to mine. And the guy who, and the matches we compiled here are kind of like the greatest hits, but I think kind of underrated as a wrestler and someone who clearly has a mind for putting matches together.
His catalog is definitely deeper than I think, like your gut feeling may suggest. Because when we did this, we didn't have to reach very far from any of them. I mean, the Jeff Jarrett one, like, slightly, because the Wall Street run didn't have a lot of signature matches. We wanted to represent that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were just doing 6 matches from across his career, you could do it like that, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's some really good stuff there. You mentioned the Northern Lariat. He's an interesting finisher guy, right? Because they did that. At one point he was rocking with the perfect plex, and that was when he was doing the Wall Street shtick. Then he had the crossface was his finish as the It Factor, and then as Glorious, they gave him the DDT, which I think his execution of that DDT was beautiful. We're going to go in the Kenta match we'll cover tonight. My goodness, he hits it with some extra spite in the closing stretch of that match. So yeah, he's an interest in that regard. You mentioned Team Canada and him being the muscle. So it's been said that the actual blueprint when they were putting it together was that he was going to be on. That was the idea, which would explain, like, there's certain elements to him. Right, exactly. Right. He does the spine. He does the double A spine buster. He does a very pretty one. It makes like some sense. He kind of became an interesting. The On comparison was apt in that he was similarly to On. He was a guy who found himself in a lot of tag teams that had good wrestling matches. But as he evolved, the archetype, NXT, like Triple H kind of had him playing like some Flair covers also, right? So he was kind of a weird mesh in that regard. Obviously, a mesh of Arn Anderson and Ric Flair sounds like the best wrestler ever. I get that's like a very flattering way of framing it, but you get my point, right? There's kind of elements of both there. So yeah, an interesting one. You mentioned about the NXT run, kind of hoping it doesn't fall to the wayside of history or go underappreciated, but it must be said, it kind of does feel, to me anyway, I don't know what you guys think, it's been 7 years. It does feel like a lot of that stuff is kind of forgotten. And I
think the biggest thing that's forgotten is that NXT was good at one point in time. People seem to forget that.
It's like, when I see Black and Gold Conversation, we'll get into this more later, folks. When I see Black and Gold Conversation, it almost always is about before or after that time. You know? People talking about, maybe Sammy and Kevin and the really early days, the Four Horsemen and such, or they jumped like the USA Network and all that was, and a very different, very, very different show. So I don't know, Bob, you usually have your finger on the pulse. You're famous for that. What do you reckon? Do you think people have forgotten?
Yeah, I think you make a really good point. Like, they talk about best NXT champions or whatever. His name doesn't really come up. I think a lot of people, found him boring compared to some other stuff on the product at that time, which, he wasn't. But I also get how they could arrive at that conclusion, I guess. But like,
he's very much a fundamentals wrestler. He can be kind of dry. I get it.
He was so wildly different from everything else on that show at that point in time, and to me, that's what made him like the perfect world champion for that show at the time, because it really was a variety show of like great women. You had like Asuka having compelling matches with people, and then FTR would have a tag match, and there would be some random kind of blitzy spotty type thing in the show, and then you would have the world title Bobby Roode match that was wrestled fundamentally, and him and Nakamura, that first match in San Antonio, to me is still the best NXT title match ever, just because it felt like they were fighting for like a really important prize, as opposed to now where it's just like, where's the hard camera so that I can go on TV?
There was my favorite thing about that era of NXT was there was like a hint of it being a throwback, and it actually felt like an updated take on the wrestling TV of yesteryear and the way that it framed and presented the action. And
it was also, and we've talked about when you and I go into our sides about it, Joey, that there was still like, it was kind of still a secret because it was like 1 hour on the WWE Network every week.
Yes.
And certain people hadn't got their finger in the pie yet. And like, it was I mean, just the stories that were told on there were fantastic.
Yeah.
Someone asked about Roode and Magnus ever having good matches. No disrespect to the guy, I don't know. I can't think of Magnus having any matches that are worth seeking out from his TNA run. But if he were here, and Nick, we know you're watching, I would not be at all surprised if he was someone who said he kind of modeled himself after Bobby Roode when he left TNA with the whole what was it? The Diamond? What was the character? The Gambler? Was that the character he had where he was like the NWA champion?
I remember him being the National Treasure.
The National Treasure. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Fucking Gambler, Barry Darso.
I was gonna say.
But yeah, Aldis is another one of those guys, and there's a handful of matches you can point to, and no disrespect to Nick, but he's not the worker Bobby Roode is, but it's a living testament of the idea. If you carry yourself like a star, that can kind of go a long way with people's perception of you.
Yep, absolutely. Folks, I mentioned earlier, our acts tonight, Act 1, we have 2005 through, I guess, 2007. Act 2, the Beer Money era, including the famed blow-off match they had at Bound for Glory 2012, and then Act 3 in the World Wrestling Federation. And we hope you are well tonight. We hope you're enjoying this or NXT or whatever it is you're doing. I know that the WNBA is rocking and rolling. Confirmed Shoot's locked in. So shout out to him also. If you are watching on the YouTube, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe, all those good things. If you're watching elsewhere, we'd appreciate if you hopped over at some point just to do the aforementioned thumbs up business. All right. Lord Oracle is tending to his dinner right now. So when he returns, we will circle back to get Oracle's kind of his own personal journey of Bobby Roode fandom or lack thereof. But in the meantime, let's get into this, fellas. Let's get rocking and rolling. Act 1. The aforementioned 2005 starting point. Where are we at here? January 16th, 2005. The Impact Zone. Physical media is on display. Oh, my God.
Yeah, you got Jeff Hardy standing like Chris Angel in the middle of it, who, by the way, he wrestled Scott Hall on this show with special referee Roddy Piper.
It was a different time, wasn't it? My goodness. Speaking of different times, a very different Impact Zone in attendance for this. This was when it was like, it's about Virgin Territory, bro. They were popping huge. They were having the time of their lives. It was a party atmosphere. Yeah, it's wild, actually. To be fair, we do 3 matches from the Impact Zone, and just the way it worked out, they're actually rocking for all 3 of them. But if we'd have just gone elsewhere on that 3rd match, they could have been sitting there in silence. Nonetheless, Final Resolution 2005 NWA World's Tag Team Titles, America's Most Wanted Challenging, Team Canada, Bobby Roode and Eric Young. Of course, Roode and Young, for anyone who's unaware, are like the best of friends. And kind of were attached for a long time. They had like a lot of matches in the later TNA era, and both were in NXT at the same time. The takeover we're going to cover later, Eric Young opens the show with Roderick Strong. Those guys are really, really tight. So Scott D'Amore at ringside, of course. Mike Tenay is quite spiteful in his discussions of Mr. D'Amore. The setup here, Team Canada won the belts the month prior. They beat the Free Life Crew, which is a famed act that Bob liked very much. This is their 2nd reign. I think both reigns are like 1 month long. Kind of trade the belts here back and forth for a little bit. As I mentioned, Bobby Roode slotted in the Arn Anderson role. At this point, he's already 6 years deep. I didn't realize he debuted in like 98. I didn't. Yeah. This was not so I'd considered.
He got a few shots on Velocity or Heat or something. I know you have to go back and find those.
Yeah. So we're like, he's already relatively deep here as we get started, but. My goodness, the thing here, Alex, is just that pace. What a match this is. I know you were fired up to cover it. AMW, Team Canada, talk to us. Alex, go for it.
After this rewatching and kind of just analyzing it more so than I have before, I'm ready to consider this one of my favorite tag matches of all time. I think this is incredible. And this was the 3rd pay-per-view from the Impact Zone, the 3rd when they switched to Sunday night pay-per-view, 3-hour events versus, the Asylum days, the weekly 2-hour shows for $9.95, and the previous month had been the greatest match in TNA history, the AMW XXX 6 Sides of Steel, losing team must disband match, And so AMW at that point, because of coming off that match, were like probably the hottest act that was going there in Impact Zone. And the crowd is molten for like this entire match.
Yeah.
And ironically, the match we end on could have benefited from a molten crowd, and they don't get it. And like, I still think this match fundamentally is outstanding, but what puts it over the top is the crowd reaction to it. It's just unbelievable. We get a good opening brawl with the head scissors. Somewhere along the way here in the opening minutes, old Eric Young gets popped in the head or hits his head on something and has like this fucking Mark Hominick style hematoma on his head for until it goes down. I think it even like kind of splits at one point, but Bobby Roode has an amazing moment in this where they do the bad guy thing of the ref's back is turned, and so him and EY switch places, and he just like claps to make it sound like, you know, there was a tag, and the ref comes over and is like, "Did you tag in?" And he's like, "Yeah, I tagged in." And you hear like a little kid or something go, "No, he didn't." And then Bobby Roode points at him and goes like you know, like you see, he knows what's going on. And there's a point too where like, oh no, that's in our next match. The Impact Zone faithful throwing me off. Eric Young at one point this does a flare flop from the apron, which I thought was hilarious, but also just completely unnecessary. This match and all of them, I took note of the way Bob Roode takes a back body drop looks incredible, but like probably not the best thing for his tailbone long term.
I would agree. I think he'd agree too.
As was the style at the time, we get a Tower of Doom in this that I do kind of enjoy. Because the way it's set up is basically one guy flies off the end into Bobby Roode, who's like waiting in the middle of the ring. And Eric Young, God, what a beautiful elbow drop that guy had. It's he can get height and just come down with it. Chris Harris, one of the lost talents of wrestling in the sense of AMW was an amazing tag team. When they split, they had that incredible Texas Death Match. And then he never really went anywhere as a single star. And then the infamously bad run in WWE ECW, it was Braden Walker was his name, right?
Yep.
Then sadly, it was just never taken again. But you see him in this, and he's big and he's fucking jacked, and he gets that hot tag that people are just like hanging on everything he does. And this match could not have worked any better. Bobby Roode, man, at one point, they're doing the cat and mouse for Johnny Divine's out there, and I think it's Harris is chasing him, and Roode just takes his head off with a clothesline on the other side. Like, it's one of those, it's just the hard cam, and they're on the other side of the ring, so you see it, but you can hear it, like, more so just come through the broadcast. It's vicious. You mentioned Scott D'Amore. I understand, you know, we've advanced past, like, making fun of people for, well, we should have, making fun of people for physical differences and things like that, but I still think it's funny because Scott D'Amore's whole thing, and because he wasn't even that like fat, like he was just like a dude, but Mike Tenay just, you know, look at that big load, like he just talking about how fat he was constantly. And Scott D'Amore also, he's not persona non grata, is he? Is he a weirdo?
No.
Is he a creep? Okay.
No.
Well, then I'm comfortable saying that I always thought he was very funny as a manager. Like, he was so over the top and very much that you know where he came from in terms of training, like that mid to late 80s, early 90s style of like really over the top. And I would love when he would drape the Canadian flag over them to have like the huddle and then get mad if the camera got too close to him. And like the whole thing where AMW handcuffs him to the ring post in this, and he's like biting at him, trying to get him off. It's excellent. They just try every like play at the end to try to make the crowd think that AMW is not going to win, which is great because they do get like 2.9999 on the Powerplex, which that's the move that they beat Triple X with. That was Triple X's finisher. And so that's like what they took from it and thinking they could like use it as their own. That was like the desperation they were in this match. That was the story, at least the way I took it. The Death Sentence is an incredible tag finish that I don't know why someone hasn't stolen that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we do get a Northern Lariat, a really good spot of Harris is trying to get rid of a chair, and so he hits his head on the chair, and it's all of the standard bad guy tag team tropes. But then at the end, Johnny Divine thinks that it's Chris Harris or James Storm, grabs onto him, but it's actually Eric Young and hits him with the chair without looking. And he has a really great comedic sell too. If he like puts his arms up for the 3 count, and then he hears the AMW music and like turns around astonished. This match is incredible. I dare say a masterpiece. This is one of the first, or not first, but one of the early matches that TNA had moved to Orlando. They were doing those Sunday night pay-per-views. This was like, okay, because this was also 4 just completely non-WWF guys there, and it was. I remember this match really set a tone that sadly waned.
Yeah.
But specifically, this match is followed by the Ultimate X match with PD Sabin and AJ, which is unreal. And I would put these two back to back as like one of the all-time pro wrestling 1-2 punches of matches back to back. But I think this is amazing. Everyone in this match does their role perfectly. AMW was such a good white meat baby face, especially for like, some Southern Towns type tag team. Like, you think about like what fucking Jim Cornette could have done with them in like Smoky Mountain or something.
Yeah.
They would have been gods. So amazing. 5 stars, whatever, all the fucking hyperbole I could throw at this match. If you haven't seen it, it's on YouTube. Go out of your way to check this out. This match is just magnifique.
It is the first of 3 James Storm appearances on the Grappler, right? As a tag team opponent, as a tag team partner, and as a singles opponent. And I think it's fair to say those 3 matches, they are 3 like just outright TNA classics, right? All 3 of those matches are like ones that I think would get cited among the greatest matches in promotion history, and have been cited as such, actually. So, yeah, I think that can't be kind of overstated here. This is one that it gets rave reviews in some circles, but it feels like has kind of faded to the background slightly. Whenever it's brought up, though, it's with that kind of reverence, because it's just, again, that pace, the excitement, the energy of the crowd. We're covering Bobby Roode here, but it has to be said, Eric Young could go, man. My goodness, could he go? And I think he was so good at being like being versatile and kind of a jack of all trades, right? And he'd do the comedy stuff, and he'd do. Eric Young could really go. I'm not surprised at all that he's been a player in wrestling as long as he has been. He was tremendous in this match, in particular. Bob O'Neill, firstly, had you ever seen this before?
I hadn't even really heard about it, to be honest with you. So yeah, I mean the inclusion, again, it surprised me, but I understand for sure. Alex really pointed it all out. Like, they got the crowd back. The match before this was Monty Brown versus Kevin Nash versus DDP, which didn't have a great reaction. So that was a big part of it. And just, like you said, the pace, the brawling, it was excellent, man. I'm glad we started here. I'm glad we picked this one, because this was a tremendous time. And the entire just like final 3 to 5 minute stretch where it's just like false finish, get up, keep going. It rules.
Sets the tone. All 3 of our acts feature a tag team match, and I think that's fitting. I think that will probably be Roode's kind of historic calling card, I think, even with our affection for his single exploits. Must be noted on the negative note is Bobby he hadn't figured out the facial hair he was going for yet, right? He still had the slightly unfortunate. It would come together. It would come together. It happens. It's part of the journey you take in this game. Nonetheless, the Oracle of Wrestling has returned. He warned us. If you notice, folks, it appeared that I was stalling slightly. The famed Grin Grappler group chat, which is usually reserved for ratings talk and gate receipts, it filled with panic, I think it's fair to say, as the Oracle of Wrestling declared he had some sort of problem with his food, and I didn't know. I thought he'd had a fight with the delivery driver. I couldn't figure out why. Is everything okay, Oracle?
Oh yeah, it was placed at the wrong place, and I had to go hunt it down. And the poor lady was kind enough to answer the phone call and was very nice and got an extra tip from me, because that's how I treat people who work for a living.
Take that, Bob.
I'm flaunting my.
The Oracle of Wrestling. High chancellor of morality. Here he is.
All's well.
Good. Okay, I have a couple questions for you. When, if you did you become a Bobby Roode fan, and what did you make of their tag match with AMW? Go for it, Oracle. Take it away.
I became a Bobby Roode fan about 2.5 years ago. I thought he was pretty good in 2011, 2012 when I, from the TNA I saw, but I was never a huge fan of the guy. I did like Beer Money in 09 when I watched a bunch of TNA in 09. I thought they were like one of the better things on TV. On their TV at the time. But I was much more of a James Storm fan.
Yep, the cowboy.
I didn't become a Bobby Roode fan really until a couple of years ago, and then he retired basically. I really enjoyed the Dirty Dogs team. They kind of popped me. But yeah, he's somebody that he's kind of a hindsight person because he was always just there as like I don't know. In WWF, he was always used as like a good hand. I mean and then I was not huge on Glorious Bobby Roode. I'm probably still the low vote on the Hideo Itami match. I thought we'll get to it. I thought it was good this time around. At the time, I thought it kind of sucked, but when I watched it the other night, I thought it was a good match. Comfortably so. But yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of his until just a couple of years ago, and there were like half these matches I'd never seen before.
That's cool.
I'd seen the Final Resolution tag many times, but I'd never seen the Jarrett match. I'd never seen the Motor City match. I'd never seen I don't even think I'd seen I'd seen clips of the James Storm, but I'd never seen the full match in full because I'd always seen Storm's fucking Muda scale blade job, but I'd never actually seen the full match. So yeah, this a lot of this stuff was kind of new to me, or at least I was able to kind of really give him a good look here. I thought this was a great selection of matches. But
good. How did you feel about the first match, brother?
Oh, the match still holds up. I mean, Bobby Roode was a hell of a tag worker. I was interested enough after watching the stuff and during while I was watching the stuff to like look up like the big tag teams he had with Eric Young and James Storm and Austin Aries and Dolph Ziggler and Chad Gable. Great tag worker. One of the best tag workers of the last
for sure
5 years.
For sure.
But yeah, this match was just tremendous, man. Mike Tenay and Don West on the call. A face shine. I always love when we get a real we don't get face shines enough anymore. Granted, AEW doesn't, but WWE style doesn't really allow for enough face shines.
They go straight to a break.
Back a little bit with Triple H. Triple H is kind of I think the producers have kind of allowed it to come back a little bit on WWE TV, but face shine is like so important to the tag structure, and they're out there brawling and like bumping and like Storm's doing a fucking like Total World head scissors or whatever on the ramp, and crowd's going crazy. The way that they set up the near falls and just paced this match and had everything, with the pace and everything, it's very reminiscent of like, you forget that FTR didn't, they popularized that style, but I mean, these tag teams were doing this shit in TNA, and definitely somewhat in Ring of Honor, I'm sure as well. But like, these guys were doing this stuff. It's just FTR kind of made it, and what I mean by that is a modern version of like, it's not like necessarily, this isn't Rock and Rolls and Midnight Express. That's a little bit more just, really garnering heat, quick tags and stuff. There's it's there, but this is more like big moves, but it's mixing in with the big, high impact offense that that we got that was so popularized in the 2000s. Just tremendous stuff, man. I mean, Eric Young, very underrated worker. The biggest issue Eric Young always had as a wrestler is he was a little bit too shock faced. So much so that people actually thought he was a terrible worker at the time. There were people on the message boards, and again, the message boards, who thought he was awful because of the faces that he would make, which is not true. I mean, the dude was bumping like a maniac. He does a face plant off the fucking ring apron in this match. That's ridiculous. And that's after he got a, massive hematoma on his head from God knows what. But yeah, I absolutely agree. Eric Young, very underrated worker. But just on Roode himself, just like what, and this is the case for all these matches, but like he knows his way around the ring so well. His timing,
he's smooth.
His ring placement, his ability to feed and bump, and just get in the right place, which is so critical in tag wrestling. And his basing proves to be really good, especially in the Motor City match, which we'll get to here in a few minutes. But
Mm-hmm.
he's not somebody with a lot of he doesn't have a lot of he's very old school in that way,
Yeah.
He just knows how to be in the right place at the right time. Clearly trained very well. Like I fucking know. But he's somebody who, I don't know, that's like the one thing, if we're talking about him, is that his ring placement and just his time.
He's
I don't know.
absolutely.
I was super, super impressed by that.
Yeah.
He's very underrated. Like, after watching this stuff, he's come across as very underrated.
I feel comfortable saying it because if you just listen to the way the guys talk about him, it's pretty apparent that he's like one of those pro kind of guys, right? Where it's like, I think it's very apparent to his peers how good he is.
Mhm.
And I think that's why he got used the way he did at certain points in his career.
He just knew where to be, and that's so important in wrestling. None of us are going out there and but I don't think we have to be. But,
Bob,
we've been watching long enough to know what have
it's very apparent.
Have a comfortable idea of what's good or bad. And this guy is I don't know. I mean, I say this with some hesitation because I always feel weird when I talk about the actual one thing about selling, but when you talk about the mechanics, I always feel a little weird. But I don't know, man. The guy just he's definitely a worker's worker. You can tell.
The mechanics go by FTR now, just so you know.
Right.
There's a certain he's smooth and he's very, very efficient with the way he moves. Very efficient. It always feels like exactly where he needs to be. It's apparent when you watch 6 matches in a row like this. It's very apparent. I like the FTR point in that I think when you look at matches like this and you look at Beer Money, you can see that the evolution, it did actually, you can trace it rather than it just being it stopped in 1991 and then it returned in 2015. Or absolutely, there's stops along the way in the middle. And I think, I don't know, Dax Holt isn't on this show. He was on LNG 100 though. I think he would co-sign. I think he would co-sign that. Of course, the end of this Grin Grappler journey, where we have those kind of worlds cross over, and I think you see how much of a natural fit it is, right? So, yeah, basically what the WCW Southern NWA World's Tag Title matches did live. This one was literally for the NWA World's Tag Titles, but you get my point. Right? It lived throughout, so I definitely think that's apparent here. So there you go, folks. First match in the books. We also have our first super chat, which I definitely is a thing I remember we're doing tonight. Brainbuster, our friend Brainbuster, says, and I quote, "First time seeing Roode was a Beer Money tag versus RVD and Sabu. At the time, I thought it was incredible, but I'm confident now that it was not. Perhaps, honestly, it may have been good. There's a Beer Money tag with I want to say Hardy and Van Dam from 2010 TNA that is awesome. There was a stretch where Beer Money could have a good match with Bob and I think, if we had time, We had a good agent, maybe.
Double DQ.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I put him over. I know Bob ain't. I'm going to ask. So there you go. Thank you, Brainbuster. We appreciate you, folks. If you have any specific memories about Bobby Roode, like our friend Brainbuster, you could bring him forward with super chat or not. I'll probably put him on the screen for because this is the Grin Grappler, right? This is a very niche program. We appreciate anyone who spends their Tuesday night with us. Okay.
Absolutely.
We jump ahead now to May 13th, 2007, TNA Sacrifice. A very different Bobby Roode. We mentioned it earlier, the kind of Wall Street singles act. Bobby Roode, they're clearly trying to give him the push here. He's got Tracy Brooks as a valet. And he gets a big-time win at TNA Sacrifice 2007. His opponent, of course, All Elite Wrestling star Jeff Jarrett. This is actually, I found this to be quite compelling, this setup, because I remember this run, but I didn't put it together in my brain. So basically, folks, after Bound for Glory 2006, as many of you will recall, that was where Jeff Jarrett lost the belt to Sting, which we covered on Grin Grappler, right? I'm more certain. Sting, Grin Grappler. And afterwards, Jeff stepped away. There was obviously stuff going on, for his family life, to say the least. And he stepped away for a moment, and he returned on the road to Lockdown 2007 as a babyface. And the way that they framed it, I actually think was like really effective. This kind of idea that like he had realized that his wrongs, and he was going to try and redeem himself as the founder of TNA, and it's kind of awesome because there was nothing left for Jeff to do as a heel at that point, right? Like he'd been the top heel for years. And whatever you think of that idea, the Impact Zone is absolutely willing to play ball and treat Jeff like God. So like it works. He gets an incredible reaction here. Has to be noted, Alex, you said it, the video package before this. Some of the antics they got up to in the build to this, brother, was outrageous.
Yep.
Cornette got bumped. There was a guitar shot to Tracy Bruce. Much going on. Bobby Roode, Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah, it was 2007, and still the thirst for man-on-woman violence was kind of shocking. It was.
Russo also got himself the pencil too, so that would make sense.
Obviously. The only thing that this fucking that could have made it more obvious if this match was wearing a Yankees jersey, but it's a pretty obvious bill that they do the best they can with this, because that's. I don't want that to detract from talking about Bobby here. It's just like that's part of the match is like, oh, Jeff Jarrett's gonna hit the woman, and it's like, okay.
It's not subtle in that way. It should be noted too, Jeff. They shot the angle for this with Jarrett saving Eric Young, right? So you have a little bit of a crossover there. Eric Young as the kind of comedy character. That was like Rude's main rivalry. It went on for like a year. I swear they fought forever about this. So that's what's going on. Clearly, there's lots here. Bobby, I'll ask again, have you seen this before? I assume not. What did you make of it?
I have not, no. It was fine. Like, I didn't really remember babyface Jeff Jarrett. He, again, was a heel for most of his time in TNA, especially up to this. But then I kind of remembered, the time, and he went home for a while, and, that whole thing was going on. And, again, for a nice, like, little 10-minute, third match on the pay-per-view, second match, whatever it was, I think it was really good. I don't think it reached really the heights of a lot of the other matches that we are talking about here. But, for what it was, I thought it was a really good time. And, it's a nice win for Roode, and then Jarrett gets to stand tall at the end anyway. So it worked.
Yeah, it's definitely, as I mentioned earlier, the match we had to kind of reach the furthest for. Roode, I think, as skilled a pro as he was, I think it took him a while to truly be like a really strong singles wrestler. I actually think, even if you look at the It Factor run, at the end of 2011, he has a couple matches with AJ that are really disappointing for the belt. And then the following year, they have a TV match that rocks. And I think it really highlights, like, it took Roode a few more years even to really be a strong singles. I think that's apparent here, but I still think this is a good performance. He's bumping big, working hard. This is a fun one, Alex, right? Jeff and Roode, what did you make of this?
Yeah. I was looking at the card order for that show, and this was the second match on the show. So it really was the idea of Jeff having to work his way back up. There's 2 points in this match where Roode takes the aforementioned back body drop, one on the floor. That's just like, brother, you got a ways to go, man. There's a part in this, Jeff kind of got carried away with this at some points in TNA, where he would just do something blatantly illegal in front of the ref, and the ref had to act like it didn't happen. He literally does a pop-up dick kick in this match. He throws Bobby up and kicks him on the way down, to which Don West, of course, bellows right in the nads, because Don West was great. There's Bobby Roode's working it over Jeff at some point on the outside, and you hear this little kid say, "You suck, Roode, you idiot," and he just kind of looks at him and then just goes back to what he was doing. I mean, there is a lot of TNA, the LOL TNA, and the finish of this, and the way it's kind of put together with the ref and Bobby Roode fighting over a chair, and then Roode accidentally hitting himself in the head with it. And one thing about Roode, Bobby and I called out about how he was like the last holdover in TNA there before he jumped, and or before the ashes were smoldering there. He's one of those guys. Him and Eric Young both, it seems, they're very loyal to Jeff Jarrett, and very thankful for the opportunities they gave him. So he definitely has no issue giving him a lot here. I do love this moment in the match where Bobby Roode shoots off Jeff and then gets him in a rear chin lock, and then Jeff immediately gets out of it and puts his on because that's like one of his signature holds. And also, Jeff is just so hilarious in this match because there's that part that I mentioned where Bobby accidentally brains himself with the chair and he's all like on Dream Street, and Jeff's just standing behind him and he's doing this shit with his hands like, job well done, and he didn't do anything, and then he gives him the stroke, and but he ends up losing. There's a lot of the exposed turnbuckle play around that, and then I love when I think Roode called it the payoff, the perfect plex he was using, and Don West, because Don West was awesome, just as a wrestling fan, he's like, oh, he used the perfect plex, and then Mike Tenay immediately has to be like, he calls it the payoff or whatever. Yeah, and this 07 was a very strange time in TNA. You know, we talked about in detail, myself and Oracle, when we talked about Bound for Glory 2006 and how like momentous that show was, and then literally the next month they kind of just put all of that momentum in an oil drum and lit it on fire in the middle of the ring. And so like there was still some holdover of like hope, like what's going to happen here. The Jeff comeback was cool. The lethal lockdown match he came back for was awesome. But this was, you know, the main event of this is Kurt Angle, Sting, and Christian. And, you know, Team 3D against Scott Steiner and Tomko was on this. Like, it was already like there were some things happening that were less than favorable. I did mention a few minutes ago, though, the James Storm, Chris Harris, Texas Death match is on the show, and that match is incredible. So
That's a classic.
Yeah, so
That's
check
great.
out both those matches from this. So comes at an interesting time. Roode is, you can tell definitely his confidence levels increase, obviously. But here, you know, it feels like he's realizing he may be a single star, and he's trying to kind of figure out how to, you know, use that as energy and what that means for him. Because I think this isn't, you compare this to the fucking Kenta match, it's not even the same guy.
Yeah, he's just way more aware of what his game is at that point, right? Like, it's just different. And the presentation like fits him, and he's like, yeah, it's a very different thing. There's a lot of horse shit in this match, Oracle, but there are also those familiar Jeff Jarrett right hands, brother. Babyface, Double J. Oh,
You know what I was literally gonna say? I was
Yeah,
just throwing those right hands. I was like, oh shit. So I like the first half of this match pretty well. The second half, not so much. This is
It's
typical
ridiculous.
Jarrett Smosh and TNA, where all sorts of horse shit fucking happens. Drives me nuts. But like the first half is really, because like Jeff Jarrett's such a great worker, man. When like he doesn't have to do this shit in his matches. His hair at this time pops me huge because like I had the same haircut in like the late 2000s, but like my hair wasn't as blonde, so it just pops me. He had like a 2000s high school kid haircut. So Tracy Brooks was very distracting for me as a middle schooler and early high school kid with a tattoo, because they always emphasized that, so it was very distracting for me. But my favorite part of the finish was the way Roode blocked the figure four, which was fucking awesome. I've never seen that before. Like people need to like steal that, you know. That was like a super cool way to block the figure four, to set up to get for Jarrett to hit head first into the post, and then the perfect plex. But yeah, this era of Bobby Roode was weird because like he was doing the Robert Roode thing or whatever, and I don't know, at the time I was like, this sucks. But like in hindsight, he wasn't bad here. It was just, I don't know. Obviously, it wasn't the best place for him to be pushed, and of course, it ended up working for him later. Although he did end up losing to Kurt Angle at Bound for Glory, whatever year that was, and
it worked out.
Story of a friend of ours by the name of Mike Alex, who saw it in a movie theater.
Oh, yeah.
And like there were two other people.
that.
There were like two other people there, and Kurt beat him, and he said he burst out laughing in the theater. Kurt Pending scene or whatever the hell it was.
I can't believe I forgot that story. The thing about that is, we'll get to it, but it's a shame because it's the ultimate LOL TNA. But like what they actually do coming out of it is pretty sick. It's just it was the wrong play because it confirmed what everyone thought of the promotion. Like, of course he loses, it was.
Yeah.
It's a shame. Yeah,
In
what hell?
That was the match that was preceded by Sting versus Hulk Hogan in 2011.
A classic. Folks, look at this.
My
Look at
God.
this. It used to be better.
Oh my God, they got the hair.
Yeah.
They got the hair.
Look how
Now,
happy.
this was a very controversial figure because I think, I could be wrong on this, but I think by the time it came out, like they'd changed the color of the hair. And it was like really dark. So it didn't look like Jeff Jarrett anymore because his hair was blonde, right? Like he's looking great out there. But yeah, glorious. He's got a new AEW figure. Have you seen that, Alex? Jeff Jarrett,
It's pretty amazing. Yeah. I'm a big fan. Oracle, are you familiar with the Jeff Jarrett? There's an Attitude podcast called the AE Podcast, and they pointed out that like Jeff Jarrett would yell something indiscriminate when he would lock on like a headlock coming off the ropes, like in the late 90s, and they pinned it down. The spelling of it was GLAH-GEY, and there's specifically from I think it's King of the Ring 98. He gets X-Pac in him, he shoots him off the ropes, and you just hear him go, "Oh, okay!" That's like the noise he makes when he gets him in the headlock. So next time you're watching a Jeff Jarrett match and he hits the chin lock off the shoot, just listen for him.
Oh man,
it's crazy that like this match we just reviewed, Jeff is playing the role of like babyface legend, and a moment ago we were talking about FTR and them being the evolution of that tag style. And on Saturday night, Jeff Jarrett shared the ring with FTR.
Yep.
And I guess that had to have been the first time him and Brian were ever in the ring together, right?
Has to be. Yeah, I haven't seen the match yet. I haven't watched it. I'm gonna watch it. I'm saving it for a rainy day. Save it for Christmas. All right. Wonderful times. Okay, other matches to call out from this first. This would be anything pre-beer money. I want to know that Roode had Christian's first TNA match. They have an Impact main event.
that's right.
I don't particularly like it, but people like it a lot, so it's worth noting. It has like a ridiculous TNA finish because, of course, even though it's Christian's TNA debut, it has to have like a run-in. But there's some good stuff in there. Also, I don't know how good it is. Alex, you may better speak to this, but Team Canada wrestled DDP and Monty Brown, which, like, for science, maybe worth revisiting. So there's a couple.
Yeah, and like honestly, dude, like people listening to this might think I'm off my rocker. Like Team Canada had some good matches with the Dudleys. Yeah. Like
I believe it.
The Dudleys came in. They had at one of the lockdowns, because I remember the big spot, and it was going back to Bobby Roode, his potential back problems. He what did Bubba call it? The full Nelson driver he did? Was that like the Bubba Bomb?
Yeah.
Bubba Bomb.
Bobby Roode takes that off the top rope on that six-sided ring. And like he lands so hard that it bounces him back up to his feet like standing. It's preposterous. But I mean, I understand that modern Bully Ray is very much LOL, but Team Canada had some good matches with them. And also like during some of the international competition
World
in the
Cup,
Asylum.
World Cup stuff
that's what I was thinking
Team
of.
NWA and Team Mexico. Yeah, those matches are good.
That the old Asylum, yeah, there's a lot to see there. But yeah, then as far as the singles work went, this was kind of, the Wall Street rich guy. It took him a little while to find his footing with that, and then transitioned into a tag team that at that point was like the biggest platform he'd had up until that time.
His biggest singles feud in terms of placement, I think, was the stuff with Booker. But of course, the issue of that was Booker in TNA.
Late 07, right before Beer Money started. Yeah.
Booker in TNA was, it wasn't his most spirited
He was
work. I'll
fun.
leave it at that.
Booker and Main Event Mafia ruled.
Respect.
He ruled
was
as
very
a
funny.
character. And
Very
the Scott
funny.
Steiner tag team was a lot of fun, but they weren't good.
Yeah, he's very funny. It's just considering that when they put it together, they probably thought this is a singles feud that will really help Bobby get over the hump. It's like, nah, bro, that was absolutely not going to happen. Ethan Page has debuted on NXT. What a night it is in Full Sail. What's it called? Not Full Sail. What's it called? What do they call
Performance
it?
Center?
If it has a name, it has like
is it still the Capitol Wrestling Center? It was, but then I
Capitol
think they
Wrestling
moved back. I
right.
think it is the Performance Center again.
I hate that building. I hate that building.
Yeah, I used to dislike it, and then the Good Brothers started working there. I said, fuck, this place has got some juice, man. It's like the Sportatorium. NXT's on fire, folks. Tune in every Tuesday.
Actually, I'm not gonna lie. That show on June 9th, I'm kind of excited for it. That looks pretty good.
I'm fired. I'm locked in.
You want it live, brother?
I might do a Grin along. Fuck it. Let's go for it.
Yeah. Joe and I might be doing a late night.
We might do a Grin along, and then when Gallows and Anderson put those fellas over, I just end the stream. All right. Act 2, as Alex mentioned, we're now into the Beer Money era. They formed, when was it? June 2008, and I believe it was in one of those. What did they used to call their Battle Bowl tag thing? Deuces Wild, where they would put two guys together.
Oh yeah.
I believe that's how they stumbled upon.
They did that at like a sacrifice pay-per-view one time, didn't they? Like the whole show with Deuces Wild or something.
I saw Bobby Roode did a recent interview, and he talked about how like they had like a line in a promo where it was like the two things that make the world go round: beer and money. And they're like, "Oh, beer money." And it's like it's hilarious how they stumbled into this. They've both talked about how, and not in like a negative way, but it wasn't like close friends by any means. It's just like it worked. You know, it's one of those things. Just by pure luck, they stumbled into this thing. Two guys that as singles were suffering from the TNA creative of the time, and they found each other and became Beer Money, which I think will probably the thing both guys are most remembered for when it's all said and done. Very, very popular act. Our match is the most famous Beer Money match. It is the whole effing show, TV special, one of the most critically acclaimed TNA TVs ever, believe it or not, in an era that was very much not critically acclaimed often here in Hogan's TNA in 2010. This was taped on August 9th and aired on August 12th. The big thing here was this is after the kind of perception hit of the Monday Night Wars that wasn't to be, to put it politely.
Brother.
And they said, a pay-per-view quality TV special. And it is a great TV, to be fair. This is the highlight. This feud was the sole highlight of that era, pretty much, right? The final match, the best of 5
was the Stingmon on this show?
I'm sure. I have no doubt. Best of 5 series, the deciding match, 2 out of 3 falls. The other matches all had like steps. So they got to do a bunch of stuff. Ultimate X, cage match. They did a bunch of different stuff here. It's a critically acclaimed series. This match is the highlight of the bunch. And brother, these fellas were working way too hard for this setting. God bless them. They were going crazy. This chemistry in this match. I don't even know really how you break it down because, like, to me, there's not a lot of detail here. It's more just the way they string that tandem offense together and the synergy and the chemistry. My God, this thing is incredible. Oracle, you said you hadn't seen this before. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I'd never seen any of their matches. I'd always heard good
Wow.
things. 2010 TNA was, come on.
It was terrible.
I turned on one time, and
Wow.
Abyss had attempted to kill Rob Van Dam with Janice or something, and it was lots of fake blood.
Yeah.
That was bizarre. So let me mention one thing. So I remember the TNA's ECW gimmick that they did that week.
EV2.
Yeah, Dylan watched the pay-per-view, and I remember him calling me and telling me, "Hey man, you gotta watch that CW Anderson 2 Cold Scorpio match." But
hell yeah!
So that's a pop there for the memory of the week there. But yeah, this match fucking is awesome, dude. Yeah, just as Joe mentioned, like it's like a more fast-paced version of that first tag we saw. Like, and just I mean, Alex Shelley almost like decapitates himself on a fucking suicide dive on a tope. That's a real tope, by the way.
Yeah.
And I'm
Mhm.
tired of landing feet first on a fucking tope. That dude was watching his Mexico tapes because he went fucking full force and just said, "I'm going neck and head first. Pray for me."
Dude, what a wrestler! My God.
Like, holy cow, dude. Alex Shelley's been a great worker literally since he started.
Unbelievable
He was
wrestler.
like he was like a prodigy at like 19 or whatever.
Still so good, dude.
Yeah, he's a tremendous wrestler. But like, I don't know, man. It's kind of hard to keep up, because I mean, I watched all this stuff last night in a row, but like, just a great match. Another perfect example of like how good of a tag worker Bobby Roode was, and all the nice pairings that he had in his tag teams, and like, just you could work like. I don't know, man. Beer Money was a really fucking damn good team. If they were in a better promotion, my God, they would be considered a classic team.
Yeah, for
They were
sure.
that good.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you get stuck with 3-month feuds with Mexican America and like,
They were so good that I think TNA nostalgia may actually allow them to be a classic team, even with those limitations.
they were together what 3? It was summer of 2011, 3 years.
Yeah, they were incredible.
That's a long fucking time. That's a long time.
Yeah.
Damn, I didn't realize they were together that long.
Yep. Yep.
James Storm starts this match with a high pace sequence with Chris Sabin. Dude, he's outrageous though. The way that he's moving, James Storm's not a small guy. You talk about attacking the mat, brother. My goodness, these fellas were hell bent on having a good match.
It's impressive to watch because like they're getting him like the way they just again like back to the positioning and like just the timing and like
yeah.
That's why it's so impressive to watch like tag teams. You can like, it's just there's a difference when you watch that and then you watch like Carlito last night and Ray's like desperately like, Carlito will do like he'll do like an awesome thing and the next thing he like blows a spot, and it's like,
yeah, there's a rhythm, right?
There's and it's it's got to be even harder with and you're also trying to put in some the good teams will put in. Some sort of psychology or some sort of drama or whatever. It's just impressive to watch, to be honest. I mean,
it really is. Mosley Machine Guns are famous for the tandem offense, and we're kind of for the States, especially, we're like kind of revolutionary, right? For like the snappy, like one after the other tandem offense. Beer Money though should not be slept on in that regard. Dude, they had some sweet tag team moves, didn't they? And that was something that followed Roode.
Galore. I mean, like,
yeah,
it's crazy to watch. Like, Beer Money is honestly like going back to the FTR comparison. Like, those dudes were basically FTR but with worse opponents.
Yeah,
they just didn't have the they didn't have the opponents to wrestle.
And Storm has that
City, and then. They had a long feud with LAX in 08, I know, but I don't know if those matches are any good.
I can't remember if those. Yeah, they should have been, but I think LAX once at that point they're baby faces, and I think the kind of edge had come off of them. I could be wrong.
Awesome,
dude. Yeah, great. Original run LAX, like when Conan was doing all those like yelling promos and shit. That outstanding.
Yeah, absolutely. You meant the FTR person. James Storm has a little bit of that deal that Cash has, where you're kind of surprised by some of the shit they physically do because they don't do it a lot. Right? Like Storm can he's quite staggering in this match. I think you see it most. Let's forget Bobby Roode. They do that spot where they build to him doing a dive, and it's like a big thing. We're like, holy shit, Bobby Roode's gonna do a dive, and he nearly dies, but he does it.
And he does a dive like a guy who doesn't do dives, like doing a dive. Like he's like, oh,
it's awesome. When you watch that, I watched recently the whole of 2010 TNA TV, like front to back.
Wow.
And
why, dude?
Well, because like I do think
was it when you were listening to TNH?
Yes, and I do think there is a value. I think 2010 TNA is one of those wrestling products that actually is like so bad it's kind of good and it's funny, like some of the stuff they do. However, it's when you watch matches like this, it's less funny because you kind of just get bummed out of like it didn't really have to be the way it was, Like
it's like I feel like 2010 TNA is like if 2000 WCW didn't hurt as much, you know.
It's.
Of
I
course,
think
you know,
yeah.
TNA just kept surviving somehow, but
Brother,
I actually do think
like a
it's.
cockroach.
dude,
Everyone
and then,
compares every product. Sorry, Alex, but everyone compares every product to 2000 WCW. I actually do think 2010 TNA is like the closest you can get.
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah, I really do. What you gonna say, Alex?
oh, it's already one of those things that like people. We joked about this in the Sting episode. I just says now the time to call it out. It's the people acting like Joker Sting was the shining light of that time period, and like it was something to be beholden. And I don't know about all that. And I'll take matches like this over Sting. Oh,
Well, it is. We dunk on the era, rightly so. It fucking sucked. But I will say, it did appear that Bischoff and Hogan saw more value in the Motor City Machine Guns than the prior regime, which is always funny to me. Because do you
yeah.
remember how much people get mad at their booking before that? Like, people forget, dude, the late 2000s, TNA didn't push the Motor City Machine Guns, almost to it becoming like a parody of itself. It was in 2010 they got their run. Yeah, this match
I get
is
these
fucking-
X Division guys, brother, and that's why
I
we're gonna
guess.
have the Motor City Machine Guns, dude.
Oh, just wait to talk about the next match, the video package, and we got a dude cracking bones. Whatever we talk about King Mo.
I'm so fired up. 2012 TNA is like kind of my shit. We'll get to it. Bobby, what did you make of? I know you're a big Motor City Machine Guns guy. What did you make of this one?
Yeah, I don't have a ton of notes for it, kind of like you said, because it's not like a lot of detail. It's just 20 minutes of just action, and yeah, we talked about the pace in the first match, and this one might have even one update, just because all four guys just keep this incredible pace the whole time, and it was a blast, man. I do need to go check out the rest of their matches. I know this is like the highest one in Cage Match, but I can't see any of them being like bad, so I do want to check those out in the next few days here. But yeah, it was a blast, and just incredible, man. And one of the best tag matches I think that I've seen in quite some time, if not, ever, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's spectacular.
That
It's
would be
like
the Young Bucks, if I'm not mistaken, under the new branded name, right?
my God, Generation Me, brother. Yes,
Is that correct?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe so. This is don't have an ask about who they feud. I'm pretty sure because Bound for Glory 2010 is Generation Me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they had those haircuts that Russo wanted them to have. They
What
showed
were
up to
their Max
TV.
Buck and Jeremy Buck, right? Wasn't that their names?
Yes, and which is a good bit is that when they went to New Japan and joined Bullet Club, Finn thought they were still going to be called that, so he introduced them as Max Buck and Nick Buck. He thought they were going to be called the Young Buck. He thought they were the gimmick was they were called the Bucks, like the Steiners or the Briscoes. So,
Wow.
yeah, a different time, folks. Certainly,
No,
Alex.
the Wolves didn't come until late third.
No, they
2014,
would
right?
have. Rude
They had that feud in the last year of Spike, where it was Wolves, Hardys, and Dudleys.
and Dudley's. Rude has a really good tag with the Wolves when I believe he's with Aries and then the Dirty Heels, I want to say.
That's right. Yeah, the Dirty Heels versus Wolves. I remember that match getting praise.
Yeah, so.
Did the Wolves come into TNA before or after they blew their shot in NXT?
After.
Right before?
I think after, because they joined in January 2014, and I think it already happened by then.
Oh, yeah, it was late 2013, wasn't it? 'Cause I remember, yeah.
Do you remember who they debuted with in TNA? It was a new power bro, a new executive in TNA, because there was every year they would sign like two guys to be on-screen authority figures. MVP, yes.
That's right.
Nice.
Playing with Joe and Loki and Kenny King and all those guys.
Before he did that run, he was like babyface authority figure. Then he turned, and then what a time, folks! Just great.
Lashley came back that year too, right? 2014.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was how they turned MVP, right? He turned with Bobby.
I remember there was a time where Dylan was doing reviews. He was getting paid for it. On some,
God bless.
I can't remember what it was.
TNA Impact reviews.
I can't remember.
It was a business, bro. Before Destination America.
He said MVP. He said MVP's promo was pretty good at the time.
Oh yeah, he got some great. MVP's a really good character. He just never gets to be on TV for some reason. I don't know why. House show exclusive MVP. Anyway, Contrarian Alex, what did you make of this 2 out of 3 Falls thriller, brother?
eh. No, the problem is every single match on TV today tries to look like this, and I kept having to like remove my brain from that and be like, hey, this is
It was
what did we say,
novel.
13,
Yeah.
14 years ago. Yeah, and so
Mhm.
I also have this really weird thing with Alex Shelley where his babyface work is fine, but God, I love him working as a heel. Like he's incredible. Like even like, he one of the last or second to last bolas, he had a run through it where he was like the big heel in the tournament, and it was just like it was so good because he was just being a shitty guy,
Yeah.
like and that's what I'm talking about. Every match in PWG now wants to be this times like 10, but like Sabin has some showcase moments in this match, brother. Specifically, that springboard DDT he does onto Roode towards the end of the match is insane. Just like the logistics of it and how it goes off seamlessly. I can't imagine, that late in the match the entire day. I didn't bring it up in our last one. Like Jarrett, that pace by the end of that match, he's huffing and puffing, and these guys here, it's just insane that they're able to keep up with it just from like a cardiovascular perspective. Yeah, I guess my point I would try to say is we can reference another Grin Grappler match is the machine guns I love like so much was the machine guns we saw against the Briscoes many moons ago when we did our Briscoes, when they're doing that tandem, the dream sequence, some of the fucking backseat boy stuff, and then but they're still smarmy and do limb work and shit. And
I get it. Yeah.
but that being said, the Powerplex is back here, which I appreciated, and I think they call it the DWI, which I thought was pretty funny. Yeah, it just doesn't stop. Reeks of a match that they were like, all right, we don't know when we're gonna get this shot again. So, and it was the finale of a series, so they're like, let's fucking nail a home run here. I love the finish in the sense of we did our finish, we kicked out, so we just do it again and that wins. Like this did border too much on the NXT face, but again, that's because I'm so used to being annoyed with modern wrestling that I had a hard time removing myself from that and being like, man, yeah, seeing this at the time, seeing Ricochet's dumbass, like, oh, that move never wins a match, but now I'm surprised it didn't win this match. It's good stuff. It's the proper, I think, beer money match to select because I remember I had already written TNA off completely, but people were just like, dude, you got to, this fucking beer money machine gun stuff, you got to check out. So, good. It's a good match. It's basically what every Young Bucks match is now, but you just have to like realize that this is 15 years ago. So, and from the perspective of our subject du jour, Bobby's really good in it. This is probably easily the most spotty stuff he does in this whole journey that we go on with him. But yeah, and we're gonna get to his counterpart here in Beer Money in just a second in a singles match. James Storm also seemed to be pissed off about something or had a chip on his shoulder in this match because he starts off by doing the fucking Michinoku Pro opening here, and it's like, what the fuck is he doing?
He was going nuts, dude.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I appreciate it. Probably would have been hypocritical for our contrarian friend to come on here and be like, oh, yeah, I love this 20-minute fucking shootout. I mean, he'd be watching Dynamite every week if he liked this that much, right? So I get it. I understand. I think it's also important that, like, I actually think just looking at it as 2010 doesn't even do it justice because the reality is, as we've learned in recent years, there were a lot of people that watched TNA that the only other wrestling they'd seen was WWE.
Mm-hmm.
And WWE Tag Team Wrestling in 2010, isn't this like the Kozlov fucking Santino?
Mm-hmm.
I can see why for like a generation this was real big, because it was
debuting with Tamina.
Yeah, what a run. Yeah, it was a different time. This is before
various Nexus tag teams.
The thing is, Alex, this is before like you could just put on USA Network on a Tuesday night and see the Good Brothers. You know,
That's what I mean. Like that. Oh Jesus! I was like going with your thought process for a second there, and then it registered how you finished your sentence. I was gonna be like, yeah, this is all wrestling now. But no, we still got some real soldiers out there, like
yeah,
the Machine Gun and Doc doing work for us. So
yeah. Oracle, you didn't see their match tonight, did you?
No, I haven't watched all of NXT yet.
Keep save some food over, brother. You got yourself a 2-minute chin lock waiting for you. Don't worry about it.
Hell
You got-
yeah.
Coming out of the break, just settling in. Yeah, beautiful stuff. All right. Bound for Glory 2012. And let's paint the picture. There's a lot here, folks, so bear with me. On the road to Bound for Glory 2011, Bobby Roode was pretty much elected as this is going to be the guy. And they did a long build with him as a babyface. He won the Bound for Glory series. They told his story as a family man, as a white meat babyface. And as we mentioned earlier, he went on to wrestle Kurt Angle, who, God bless him, the Kurt Angle that he met at Bound for Glory was in tatters, right? He was really hurt. He couldn't really have a match at that point. And they had a fine match, and Kurt Angle won, and he won in very flat fashion. It was a very LOL TNA moment.
Brother.
However, yes, and famously, and he's said it, like Hogan has said, that was his call. Now,
and Roode,
it was
to Roode's credit, he has been given the opportunity to be super bitter and brother
Yeah.
about that since, and he's just like, yeah, it was weird. Like there's that one interview where he talks about like I flew in like a couple of my friends and my family like thinking it was going to happen, and it didn't. And he's like, but what are you going to do? Which is, and when we get to the wrap up, I'll talk about how more wrestlers should try to be like Bobby Roode, but that's a great example of it.
that very much is the vibe you get from him, right? Like he seems very low key.
Like Samoa Joe's kind of like that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's Graps, right? Just kind of
Yeah.
shrugs, whatever. So the Bound for Glory 2011 was a mistake because it was a company that had lost its audience's trust, and that didn't help. However, the creative that followed it, I will die on the hill that it was very compelling. And for anyone who's unaware, immediately following Bound for Glory, James Storm shocked the world and became the world's champion. He gave a shot to his beer money brethren, Bob Roode, who, of course, infamously used Storm's own beer bottle, smashed it over his head, sold his soul to the devil, and became the TNA World Champion. And it is one of the great TNA shots from a production point of view, him looking at that beer bottle and making that decision that he has to do what he's got to do, right? And that sparked the It Factor run. And they kept calling this thing at one point the leader of the selfish generation was their thing at one point, which is like the most Bruce Pritchard shit ever.
I saw their Lockdown match as it aired. I watched Lockdown legally, certainly legally.
Of course.
Legally, of course, always watch them legally. And that match ruled too. Lockdown
Yeah.
match.
So the only thing with that match is the crowd is unfortunate, isn't it?
Yeah.
Speaking of the Lockdown match, that was in Nashville, I believe, and the belief was James Storm would win the TNA title. He did not, and then the belief became we're going to do a year-long build, Bound for Glory 2012. James Storm was going to win the world's title.
Is this
It just so happened? Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm fucking
No, you-
living for your recap of this right now. Keep it going because I'll come back and add some things.
Okay, so it just so happened that as we appeared to be on this year-long arc, Bob O'Neill's DM nemesis, Austin Aries, became the hottest guy in TNA wrestling.
TNA came back in the summer of 2012. They
Yes,
were
it did.
capital BACK.
Yes. Slammiversary 2012, as we'll discuss before, is an awesome show. On that show, Austin Aries tears it up in the opening match with Samoa Joe. And the following month, he cashes in Option C and beats Bobby Roode in a great match. It must Bobby
match.
Roode and Austin Aries.
It was legitimately one of the best matches of that
Destination
year.
X became the X Division pay-per-view.
Yes.
Which was actually a good idea at the time. That's one of the better ideas they had in the early 2010s.
It was history will suggest otherwise because he's Austin Aries, but it's just the reality. It was the right decision to strike with Austin Aries. But what it meant was James Storm was no longer on the road to finishing the story, quote unquote, and becoming TNA World Champion. Instead, their street fight would go on second or third, I think, actually at Bound for Glory, which is the match we will cover. Alex, what was you going to add, mate? I'm sorry, I just wanted to set the stage for that.
Okay. where does this fit in where James Storm and Bobby Roode have that triple threat with AJ where AJ can't challenge for the belt for another year? Would that have been after this, you think? It might not even be Bobby Roode in there. It may have just been James Storm. I remember because AJ lost that match. Yeah, okay.
That's in late 2012, right? Because that's late 2012, right?
So
am I right about that, or is it?
It would have to be because it was the whole thing of like AJ couldn't challenge until the next Bound for Glory, which they were served on a silver platter, this aces and eights thing, and it's like, all right, he's going to be Sting and he's going to come back and save the day, and of course TNA still managed to screw it up. And Dixie Carter told AJ Styles on television that he wasn't a talent worth re-signing, and then he went and had one of the greatest runs wrestlers ever had with New Japan, and then went to the WWF and is headlining pay-per-views to this day. One thing, a wrinkle in this story that I want to call out that I always thought was incredible, that it wasn't like, here it is, pay attention to it. It was just this thing that happened at Slammiversary 2012. The main event of that show was Bobby Roode defending the title against Sting. And that's the show James Storm came back at. Yes. And he squashed Crimson, which was hilarious because they had spent like a year and a half building up Crimson. So James Storm wins, and he has a 6-pack of beer, and he just leaves it like on the steps or like by the ring post. And the way Bobby Roode beats Sting is he crawls over and grabs one of the beer bottles and smashes it on Sting's head. That's how he wins. And like just the idea of that, like it's, symmetry or whatnot. And because when the finish of this match involves the beer bottle too, it's TNA is not a company known for doing small, intelligent things like that. So it's worth celebrating the rivalry, but yeah, again, I don't think they were expecting people to start chanting Rocky sucks and that Austin Aries was going to get over like a motherfucker. So it kind of changed everything.
I'm sure Terry booked that.
Brother.
I'm sure. Look, I'm not here to personally vouch for even, especially one of them. But Lagana and Pritchard was a much stronger creative team than what they had before that. Like 2012 TNA was like noticeably better. I've often mentioned this. Dude, they won Worst Weekly Show in like 2010, 2011, 2013 in the Observer. In 2012, they won Best Weekly Show. Like, it's like a weird, and no one ever talks about it either. Like, people just go, TNA fucking sucked when Hogan came in. But it's like, it was good in 2012. It just, not everyone had stopped watching.
And they fought. What killed it was on this show, the main event of it, when they had Jeff Hardy beat Austin Aries, and everyone was just like, it's just the same fucking shit again. Who cares?
Yep. I agree completely. But this was not the same shit. This street fight.
Brother.
My God, it's a bloodbath, folks. Hogan is the setup here. He's the authority figure. We get some of those great audio inserts that Oracle was referencing earlier. King Mo is the special enforcer. This is when the Bellator thing is taking shape, which never really panned out. I think he's putting it politely. Luckily, he's kind of just standing there for the most part, right? Not really doing anything.
He does a good job of trying to be like intimidating at first, but then by the end of it, he's kind of like marking out along with the crowd. Like, what are these crazy fucking guys going to keep doing?
Yeah.
Do you so I was trying to remember where it was, and so King Mo had only had one loss up until this point. It was when Rafael Calvin Conte knocked him out.
Oh my God.
Do you remember? For those who don't know, King Mo now has a record of 21-10, and he's been inactive for several years. But at this point, he was thought to be like one of the big names that wasn't in the UFC.
It was a big signing for Bellator. Yeah.
Yeah.
When was the Emmanuel Newton fight? The first one?
2013. So it would have come after this. The one where he got knocked out with the spinning back fist. Is that what yeah.
That changed everything.
Yeah, bad. I guess for those not familiar with him, the thing was he was a very obvious pro wrestling fan. I remember one time getting into a dispute with him about WCW versus WWF back in the 90s, and he like playfully he knew his shit and whatnot. And infamously, when he was in Strikeforce, he won a fight. It might have been when he fought Mike Whitehead. It was one of the fights he won by knockout. But the sponsor of the event was Rockstar, and he grabbed a few cans of Rockstar and got up on the cage and did the Stone Cold thing with them, and then he lost 10% of his purse for doing that. And so it's that's God bless. If you're a fan of Graps, you got to let the world know it, I guess.
Yeah, and he had a really rough stretch health-wise, right? 2010s were really rough. So I believe he's coaching now, I want to say. King Mo.
Yeah, his base was wrestling, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And it was
Yeah,
it was
he
one
was
of
a
those
great
things.
wrestler.
I think him in general, I think he was more of a product of people's expectations versus what he was actually capable of.
Probably so. There you go, folks. Brief King Mo history lesson. It is relevant though, because genuinely, when Bellator got him, it was seen as a really big deal. And
Mhm.
people, when they announced he was going to do the pro wrestling thing, people were like, that makes sense.
hmm
Because, he'd often earn Rampage comparisons. Little did we know that Rampage was going to have his own unfortunate TNA stint ahead of them. So, what an interesting time. Dixie Carter in the pre-match video declares that Beer Money, quote, is the tag team that put tag teams on the map, which is I'm not sure if it's true, but I'm co-signing it for the sake of this show.
That definitely sounds like something Dixie Carter would say.
It does indeed. Alex, am I right in saying this match is a little bit more your flavor, brother? My goodness, what a brawl.
Yes.
Go for it, Alex. Take it away.
Yeah, the opening video package is great with Terry talking about the bone crunching action smash. Like, dude, he was so far off. He was off his tits, as they say in his run in TNA. The video package is good, kind of an encapsulation of what's going on. The closing line of it is fucking harrowing. Incredible, like, cinematic shit of James Storm. The voiceover begins and he's saying, I'll die to protect my daughter. I'll die to protect my family. I think he throws one more qualifier out there, but then he goes, I'm not going to die for a pro wrestling match, but I'll come close. And that's what transitions to the arena. I was like, oh, fuck. And, yeah, they get a bit cutesy with some of the tax stuff towards the end, but like, it's great. It's like two guys that hate each other and they both wrestle like heavyweights in this, and it seems like everything they do hurts and it takes it out of them, but everything moves. There's the one part where he can't find the tax, but then he just takes a chair and hits him, so he saves it that way. There is not any long sequence in this that is a big problem with spectacle matches today of we want to make sure that the crowd knows where it's going. So we have to make sure their attention is on the table on this side, or someone, is looking at something. So it's like, oh, that's what's going to happen. Everything just fucking moves here. And speaking of moves, James Storm, for the industry, took a razor and he moved that through several parts of his forehead. That dude, like, it's one of those incredible all-time Hall of Fame blade jobs that it gets worse as the match goes on. There'll sometimes be some gushers like that where guys just, and then, it clots. But dude, still by the end of the match, it's just fucking streaming. He also, his theme song at this point in time was a favorite amongst my friends of imbibing in some beers and watching wrestling by the end of the night, screaming the lyrics to this. Long necks and rednecks are my friends. Incredible old school fucking blood on the camera that they don't clean off there for a while. The closest to, like, for me was when they started doing the trading the shots to the head with the trash can lids, but then Bobby saves it by going "fuck you" and like hits him back as hard as he can. It's tremendous. We do get the tax, and again, putting myself in wrestling from 12 years ago, it's been done to death. But an audience like that wasn't used to seeing guys, especially just in fucking tights, taking bumps on thumbtacks. So it's awesome. And the one part where King Mo gets involved is good. It's a really excellent false finish with the last call. And then the ending where, he hits him with the beer bottle and then props him back up and he fucking takes his head off with the super kick. And then Roode just kind of falls back, like Michael Myers into the thumbtacks. And then that's the ending. And it's, there's something very poetic about us starting with that AMW tag match in the sense that I think consensus wise, if you talk to people, they would say both matches are within the TNA top 10 matches of all time. And, it's James Storm and Bobby Roode on opposite sides of it. And they're obviously they were stalwarts of that company. And in a time where that company was really having a hard time a year prior, making fucking sense of anything, what was up and what was down. They put together this storyline that paid off just tremendously in like a way that is so satisfying to see in pro wrestling. I remember like I had to find a stream of the show that night just to watch that one match. And so, yes, I concur that this is way more my speed and something that I recommend everybody check out.
We lost Bob, folks. I think he was getting emotional about the match, but it is, I think using the word cinematic these days it's been ruined because of all the cinema memes and all that. But
yeah,
this finish is like actually cinematic, and it's like a great conclusion to the villain's story. Right? Like, I mean, obviously, the way wrestling works, Bobby Roode is just back the next month because it's wrestling, for Christ. But he is like truly evil at this point in TNA.
Yeah.
Like, he's a horrible person. And he goes out without any dignity or grace. He gets super kicked and falls into the damn thumbtacks and loses, and Jameson doesn't pick him up and shake his hand. It's like, no, man, fuck this guy, and I think this is the only match we did. The Roddy Strong match I reviewed on the JHP channel touches on it briefly. That was a part of Roode's personality that I think he only got to truly delve into in 2012 TNA and briefly in NXT. That vibe of like, actual sociopath villain, like actual lunatic egotist. It's on display here, and it's glorious, pun intended. He feels like a monster here when he's beating Storm up. It's awesome.
Big part of his entrance at that time. Do you remember they would do that fucking boom shot where he would just like pose and then he would stare up into the camera? It was like yeah, it was super villain shit.
Yeah, it fucking ruled. Bobby, are you okay?
Yeah, I think I'm good. I don't know what happened there, honestly. It wasn't even lagging. It just kicked me out.
Seemed like you were getting emotional about the match to me. Did you like this match, Bob?
I did. I thought it was great. Again, don't know really why King Mo was there. Like, I get it in the context of the story, but he didn't do anything in the match. But, whatever. I wish they would have showed up in street clothes, but they did win me over pretty quickly after that. I thought James Storm was going to bleed out at points. Like, just incredible. And, the spear through the announce table, that looked good. I don't know if that's what they were going for, but like it worked out. And it was just everything kind of, like Alex said, had a purpose and kind of had a point, and just it worked, man. And I liked the thumbtacks. That hasn't been overdone to me yet, just because I did watch WWE for a long time and they weren't really doing that. So it's like it's still kind of fresh when it gets busted out. And yeah, I mean, it really worked. And this is another match that I was not really familiar with. I talked about at the beginning, kind of like Roode as more of a singles guy in TNA, and I'm glad that we got to experience it.
Absolutely. I always got the sense that these two were a little peeved about the way things worked out, and probably didn't envisage that their big match would be on third. Probably thought it was a main event world title match, and things changed, and that is what it is. But I always sense they wrestled with a little extra spite. Like we'll fucking show them. We're the main event of this show, and it's the match people remember from this show by like a mile. Like there's nothing even close.
Yeah.
So yeah, as Alex said, this is kind of the show where I think things start to fall off. But they finished their story, Oracle. What did you make of this bloodbath, brother?
They did, yeah. This is a great match. Of course, James Storm's blade job is the highlight for him. He's just bleeding. I mean, it's just incredible. Like Bobby Roode is covered in his blood by the end, and like Roode has like the very respectable blade job where kind of just webs and kind of stays there. But I mean, he's covered in James Storm's blood. It's just like he's covered.
He's
in it.
pouring.
Yeah,
and like the parts that made me laugh were when they would do like. They were trading the shots, and they did something else earlier too, where they would zoom in on King Mo's reaction. Like that was the most important thing from the production was what's King Mo's reaction to this. And then remember, you know what I'm talking about when they zoom in on his face.
It ruined.
It was almost like look at Graps. It's tougher than MMA out here, which was hilarious. But yeah, this was awesome, man. It's a great feud ender, one of the great feuds in the history of the company. Tremendous finish for the beer bottle. James Storm had a hell of a super kick.
Great wrestler.
just a tremendous match here. One of the last. I don't know. I always kind of look at it as like when they got dumped off a Spike.
Mm-hmm.
That's the end of that era of TNA. You know,
Yeah,
I always sort of put when they left the Asylum in the fall of 04. It's a team. I mean, there's different eras. All the way up
Mm-hmm.
to the left Spike's one big, like
yeah.
you know,
Well,
like that era of TNA.
2013 would be like it undone everything they achieved in 2012, right?
Sting left,
And they went on the road. They lost so much money. Remember how many guys were leaving? My goodness, dude.
Yeah, and then 2014 was just the final, just like this.
Yeah, I mean, I remember. I want to say it's lockdown 2013. There was like drama and controversy about whether or not Roode would show because he didn't have a contract. And that's the famous one, Bob. You probably remember the story Bruce told on something. Yeah, like what was it? They didn't send these. What did they do?
Yeah, so it got it ran through the postage and all that in the office, and they just never put it in the mail. Whoever was in charge of mailroom or whatever just never sent it out. So Roode was like, "Hey, I don't have a contract," and Bruce was like, "Oh, we sent it to you. We have the confirmation." So he checked with the mail person for the confirmation. Yeah, they just never sent it. It was on the postage. They just never put it in the mail.
I think I'm pretty sure he was the tag team champion at the time.
Yeah.
That was 2013, bro.
That's
It got crazy. Every other week there was a deal coming out. And some guys they kept, a lot of guys left. And obviously AJ Styles deal came, run up at the end of the year and it bled over into 2014. But I think you're right to signal this as like a slight end of an era. This is the show where I want to say Chavo and Hernandez win the tag belts. I want to say. Maybe.
Yeah. Yes.
And the match is the match is AJ and Kurt, Daniels and Kazarian, and those two, right, Bob?
Bad influence. They were pretty good in 2012, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yep, you're right, Joe.
Okay,
and the
so
one in between the tag title match and the street fight we watched was Joey Ryan going over Al Snow.
Wow. Or as the Machine Gun calls him, my other tag team partner. I'm going to be going with moving forward. All right, so let me just give some context on why this was the time where things started falling apart. Slammiversary 2012, Alex was there. Kurt Angle and AJ Styles have that match with Bad Influence. Unbelievable match for the tag titles. And their big idea was, imagine if we do that match, but we had Chavo Guerrero and Hernandez. And famously, Dixie, she was talking to Daniels and Kazarian, and she said, we're gonna take this to Arizona. She said, can you imagine how over Chavo and Hernandez are going to be in Phoenix, Arizona?
You're like the sort of Jedi mind trick I've pulled on you for you to have some sort of positive relationship with Chavo Guerrero Jr. as a fan is one of the funniest things ever. Because when you did that Over the Limit review, and I read it, and when you said Chavo Jr. came out and I started bursting out laughing. Because that's the match where he got I think he got canned because he couldn't have matches with Sin Cara. They weren't good,
which was unfair. It was unfair, but yeah, that match isn't their worst match.
Mystico, man.
Exactly, and that wasn't their worst match. By the way, that Miz Cena match took fucking years off my life.
That match is terrible. I actually like the cage match the month before with Miz and Morrison. That match is underrated, but the I Quit match is fucking terrible.
It's awful, dude. I gave it like half a star. Anyway, Over the Limit review. Check it out. I appreciate that, Oracle. That was good. But yes, that's a classic Dixie story. She was like, can you imagine how over Chavo and Hernandez are going to be in Phoenix? And Daniels and Kazarian were like, I mean, I guess. That was how it all turned out. A great match anyway, Roode and Storm. Don't have an at us. Which was the better team to you guys, AMW or Beer Money? And goes on to say, I
personally liked AMW better, to be honest with you. But
yeah, same.
Yeah,
I think Beer Money might have actually been the better team, but they just didn't have. AMW had a lot better. I don't know, man. They had a lot. Their catalog is really.
I'm
impressive.
A much bigger Beer Money fan, but I would imagine the AMW catalog's better. Yeah,
it is.
I think
that's why it's my answer, because Beer Money, I actually think if they were in AMW was in no, obviously the Asylum years were not great, but like they were, I think, in a better situation than when Beer Money came into.
I would agree.
Or like,
I just like the contrast of beer. I mean, the Beer Money name contrast is obviously hilarious, but like Rude is a different type of worker. Storm. I liked that dynamic.
there was a southern sort of style that AMW had that I've always appreciated
Yes.
too. Like, and
Yeah.
there's
Agreed.
actually a
They're
whole
both great
discussion
teams.
that people like PWO Lost and stuff have brought up on Twitter, where like people don't like Southern wrestling and think it sucks and think it's all bad.
Mhm.
It's
No,
one of
they
the
were-
reasons why wrestling is no longer good, because they don't practice Southern wrestling or pull anything from the style anymore.
AMW were a classic Southern wrestling team. Absolutely, yeah. I'm a bigger Beer Money fan. I don't know what Bobby thinks. Bobby's left us again. He's emotional again, but I think it was the Chavo talk. All right, other matches to call out for Act 2. So this is just anything pre-WWE. You know,
I
I'll
like
put
the
Beer Money stuff.
Storm match at Lockdown, like
Cage
the
match,
stuff that
yep.
I brought up.
There's a May 2012 TV match. It's on YouTube. AJ and Bobby Roode. That is
One day
really
like
good.
4.5, 4.25.
Yeah, really good. And it's great because their pay-per-view matches, I said earlier, were not very good. It's like they really...
There's one guy in PWO who gave their Iron Man match like 5 stars.
I've read that, yeah. So
yeah, Marty.
The thing with the Iron Man match
Marty's a good guy, but I don't know. I've never seen the match, but
I get the appeal because it is an all-time AJ Styles performance, like one of the most ridiculous. Unfortunately, Bobby's just not ready to have that kind of match. It's a 30-minute Iron Man match. He just wasn't there, you know.
yeah.
AJ Styles pretty good wrestler, but the Austin Aries match.
Both of them are. I mean, the first. I mean, Title Change is like a tremendous match. Really, even a classic in a lot of ways. But
yeah, I agree.
The rematch is pretty good the next month, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. And they have some good tags, as we mentioned earlier. Alex, any other ones come to mind, mate, for Act 2?
Yeah, they were in a triple threat tag at the Lockdown 2013 against Bad Influence and Chavo and Hernandez again. Because imagine how over they'll be in San Antonio.
Tremendous.
Did he have a good match with Kurt Angle?
I mean, probably not to my eye, probably to the normal human's eye, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was there for one of them. I think I was there. I think I see him wrestle. Yeah. Bob Lash and Bob Roode wrestled quite a bit. I don't remember any of the matches, but I'd imagine they were fun. I know that was the feud that transitioned them from Spike to Destination America.
Early 2015, late 14, early.
Yep. There's a match on a Wrestle One show that is like insane, and it's escaping me right now. I reviewed it, but I review a lot of wrestling, so I'm getting old. If anyone has cage match, Wrestle One. It's in Japan. It's on the show where Madison Rain nearly kills Gal Kim. Great show. Nonetheless, I think that's like the heavy hitters. I think. There's the ladder match with Van Dam is pretty fun from Sacrifice 2012. That's actually the match where Bobby neck first got fucked up, and obviously that was eventually his undoing. But the match is pretty good. The Sting match from Slammiversary is a fun time, which Alex again was there for. So yeah, there's a handful. Anything else?
Good, honestly.
It was. And honestly, this format doesn't quite capture it because it's less than matches and more like the way he carried himself. He really did do a great job as champion, and he was the longest reigning champ by the time he lost the belt at like 7 months, because the TNA belt had only been around for 5 years and it was TNA. So like, you know, that thing jumped around left, right. So it was seen as a real steadying thing at the time, right? It was like a reset. So it's a memorable reign.
Masakatsu Funaki at the Wrestle One show.
There you go. One of the weirdest wrestling matches ever. Like, Shooter Funaki is like doing double legs, and Bob Roode's like trying to figure out what the fuck's going on. Thank you, Alex. Yeah, I've reviewed it. It was a very weird match.
That's have you watched the Abyss versus Yoshihiro Takayama match from that show? Because that sounds like something.
No. That sounds fucking awesome.
I see it. Yeah, it's that the Roode match on that show is very much like those weird on New Japan matches where it feels like he's from a different planet.
Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely the vibe. But because Bobby's like, he's a US worker, right? Like, that's very much, he's a US traditional conventional American wrestler. So from Canada, of course. All right, let's proceed. It's time to go to the World Wrestling Federation. So Bobby finally leaves infamously. James Storm goes back to TNA for a Beer Money reunion, and then Bobby Roode leaves to NXT, which fucking ruled. He showed up at TakeOver Dallas in the crowd. That was the classic NXT thing, right? Show the guy in the crowd, and they stand up, and the place comes up for him. It was like the favorite NXT thing. He shows up at TakeOver Dallas, which is obviously a very memorable show. And I think his TV debut, or in-ring debut, is like 4 months later. He was like floating around in Regal's office and shit, and they're building to this. He gets the glorious theme, of course.
His debut match was at a TakeOver, right?
I want to say
Brooklyn
he
too.
may have had. I think he may have had a TV before that. I could be wrong. The first match was Andrade, right?
Yeah.
Then Ty Dillinger. TakeOver, I'm talking here. Andrade, Perfect 10, Ty Dillinger, and then he wins the belt. He wins the belt in January 2017, taking it from Shinsuke Nakamura, of course.
Incredible match.
Yep. The rematch is much less so, but is still there.
Just as long, nowhere near as good.
Factual. Sends Shinsuke packing from NXT, and then has he's the guy who's going to get the belt to Drew McIntyre. Now, as I mentioned on my aforementioned review video, the Drew McIntyre reign never really happened because he loses it like in an instant and gets hurt, and that's that, right? He moves on. But that was really he was just a heel in the middle. But he has these three defenses in the middle that fascinate me historically. The Chris Hero match, which is like one of the weirdest matches for two guys of the same era, and a few matches make less sense than that on paper, but he has that match.
Been good.
Yeah.
He has the one we're about to cover, and he has the Roddy match. And it's like, they were all new matchups with guys that were from his era, right? Like, it was a weird time in NXT. It kind of captures the roster at that moment.
There's a big one to call out, too, that is just like Bobby Roode versus Kota Ibushi.
Yeah. Okay. Again, that kind of paints the picture of what we're talking about here. Yeah, it's a wild time. This match, I think, is the best example of it. TakeOver Chicago. This is one of the weird, this is when NXT started getting really hot, and this cropped up as a middle, because it used to be Mania weekend, SummerSlam weekend, right? And this was a middle stop that was added.
I think largely because it was Chicago and they knew the market there, they could probably sell a decent amount of tickets.
Right.
Yeah.
And this show would ultimately be famous for the DIY turn, which would ultimately kill NXT. But it is a great angle. Like him, it's a great angle.
And then Ciampa left for 8 months for the blown knee.
This is the co-main event. Nigel McGuinness is here at this point. Percy Watson on the call. We are just before the Mauro Ranallo era.
Thank God.
He shows up the next week, right? Or he shows up the next taping for after this.
Yeah, next taping.
Yeah, I think so.
I think JR calls the Tyler Bate done match.
I was just about to call out.
The theme song for this show is
Bobby?
Is the Judas by Fozzy.
That's right.
Featured prominently on the show. Different time.
The song that taught people how to sing, right?
Yeah.
Famously. Yeah.
That's I was going to call out too. In this had one of the top WF matches of that year in that Tyler Bate Pete Dunne match. So that's kind of that and that DIY match are what the show's remembered for by the casuals. Now, motherfuckers who know ball remember it for what we're about to talk about.
So the build here is that Hideo Itami is trying to redeem himself after injuries have basically benched him for pretty much 2 years, basically, right? He's trying to win the belt and kind of fulfill the prophecy. And I had forgotten this entirely. Bobby Roode, the Bobby Roode bit going at this match is that Hideo Itami is not part of his, quote, era. And he is going to rid Itami because he represents when it was an underground promotion,
Yes.
which is fucking awesome. Bob Roode gets an incredible reaction in Chicago. He gets the total cool heel pop. They fucking love him, which is hilarious.
His face when he comes out.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Now, Oracle, I'm going to leave with you because I know you're the low man, and I think this may
Yeah.
get perverse afterwards. So I'm going to let you do your thing, and then we'll go fully unhinged. I'll just go for it, mate.
Okay, yeah. So this match is good, but I don't think it's great. It's like at the time when I watched it, I thought it fucking sucked. I was like, this match is fucking boring. You give a shit about this fucking shit. Like it got so bad and so volatile that I was very venomous. I went on Twitter and was like, "Oh man, Adami's this was the biggest match of his career, and he fucking blew it." And some fucking 2000s Noah Mark got mad and started blitzing me, so I fucking blocked him. And then he was adding people that I also that we had mutual follows. Like, this guy's a piece of shit for blocking me. He had a total meltdown because I fucking
This rules.
So yeah, ever since then, I was always kind of when y'all were talking about this match, I was like, oh fuck, I gotta go back and watch this shit. It's a good match. It's the spot where Itami misses the kick the first time is still terrible, and then he kicks it straight in the back of the head, and the crowd thinks it sucks too, so they all boo him, and it fucking rules.
That's unfortunate. Yeah, it's very unfortunate.
I thought the first half of the match was actually still pretty bland, to be honest.
Mm.
I thought it picked up when Hidami really started to connect with the strikes, and Roode was having to fight for his life while Roode was very good in this. And he was having to fight for his life to eat all these fucking strikes from this fucking lunatic, and and the finish is awesome when he hits two glorious DDTs.
Oh, yeah.
Roode is very, very good in this. As far as Itami and WWE goes, and I know Joe's not in love with these matches, but I prefer the All Elite matches as far as his best stuff in WWE. The
I don't remember those
matches. There's two of them that are good. One of them's great. One of the other one's pretty good, but one of them.
He has some good matches with Roddy too. There's some good in WWE.
Isn't there one where doesn't he have a really good match with Oni Lorcan too? Or am I mistaken?
Probably everyone did. I think didn't they at that point?
Yeah.
But it's I don't know.
Yeah, he has that banger with Roddy in the cruiserweight tournament, and also I think he has a really good match with Cedric in the cruiserweight tournament too.
Yeah,
I remember the Roddy match. Yes, that match is good. But yeah, it's just I don't hate this. I really don't think it's bad. It's just kind of the first half is I get it. Whatever. It's just not I don't know, man.
It takes a minute to click
for me, but Roode is very good, and the second half is pretty good. The second half of the match is actually very good, but the first half just kind of it took a while for it to pick up.
I get it. I don't think you're, as much as it may feel like you are on this program among freaks, I don't think you're actually in the minority with your take on it. I think there's a lot of people that don't love the match by any means. I love this match for a couple of reasons. Firstly, this and the Roode match to me are the two examples where Bobby Roode, the Roddy match, the Roode match that was narrowed down. He actually feels like the NWA World Champion here. This performance is total adjust to your challenger shit for the champ, right? He has to figure out a way to wrestle a match with fucking Kenta in 2017. This feels like a total oil and water stylistic matchup, and I feel like the reason I always call it a miracle match is to me they find a middle ground.
Yep.
That's why I love it. Bobby, do you like this match?
I do. I like it quite a bit, actually. I wasn't the biggest fan of Roode's title reign in NXT, kind of I talked about at the beginning of the show, but this one in particular did stand out to me just because they kind of kept it simple too. The whole story was Kenta's going to take out Roode's arms, so he can't do the DDT. Roode's going to take out his leg, so he can't do the GTS, and it was effective. And then when he finally did do the GTS, Roode just rolled out of the ring, which I loved. So that's kind of all it took. I think it was really, and there's a lot of times on these takeovers where the title match wasn't the main event. And sometimes I think the title matches get a little forgotten, but there's a lot of good stuff there.
The GTS teases get great reaction in Chicago because when he actually hits it, they immediately John Cena bump.
Roode hitting the bottom rope looked nasty too on the bump there.
Yeah. He was bumping violently in this, wasn't he? He was really trying. And the opening shine where Hideo is landing. God, I'm just going to call him Kenta. When he's landing strikes, Hideo Itami's kicking my ass, dude. I keep saying one or the other. It's a real mess. Kenta, the strikes he lands in the first stretch of this match, Bobby is like visibly like making a point of like making the most of them, right? And trying, because the reality is like Kenta was a really weak challenger at the time because everyone knew he wasn't going to win. He'd hardly been around. Like the crowd is
about his rotting arm on Twitter. That was the
his arm was very spooky looking. He was honestly, the Chicago crowd was like, if NXT wasn't such a babyface promotion, quote unquote, they totally would have just turned on him here. Like they were on the verge of just cheering for Roode anyway. You could tell, right? But this was when NXT, they would kind of play ball with anything because they liked NXT. So they kind of were in the middle, but you can tell Roode gets a stronger reaction. Alex, what a moment in time, bro. It used to be better.
In that Roddy match in the Cruiserweight tournament with Kenta, there's that part I remember where he's, Kenta's on the ground selling and Roddy goes, "Get up, Kenta. Get up, Hideo." Like he takes the moment to it messed with everybody. Worth always calling out. I don't know how this works logistically or if it was just kind of an Easter egg for perverts like me. I'm sure you recognize it too, Joe. The opening of Kenta's theme song has that one brief clip of the Pride drums, which is incredible. Someone on commentary just had the quote on the way to the ring, Hideo walking down. It's like, his run so far has had its ups and downs. I was like, really? I'm pretty sure it's just been down so far. So he got injured twice and he hurt someone, right? Isn't that? I know. Didn't he give someone a concussion or something?
So he got hurt before
he hurt Aries, right? Didn't he hurt Aries?
Nakamura hurt Aries.
He hurt Cash, I'm pretty sure. Cash. Wasn't it the match where they'd already been called up and they were doing their last dates for NXT?
Yeah, in Florida Loop, right?
Yeah. When we say hurt, obviously, folks, we're not being cynical.
It might have been when they were still on that, because by that point they were doing the Florida Loop and the big cities.
I think it was because the thing used to be of NXT, you'd get like the send off house show loop. I think it was like it might have been in the Carolinas even, dude. It was like a spot show.
I was at
and then months later when Cash came back, Dax got hurt.
That was brutal. That killed them on that main roster, dude.
Yeah, I was at the house show that sent off Balor to the main roster. It was his last one in Houston. The main event of which was Finn Balor and Shinsuke Nakamura against Bobby Roode and Samoa Joe. So, if that's not a JHP match, I don't know what is. But okay, so yeah, because I remember part of the thing with Hideo at this point was it was very clear that he was very nervous to like wrestle like Kenta, like as far as like laying shit in and whatnot. And in this match, it's as close as we got to it. And also, one of the things that I think became way more apparent to people after he left the WWF, dude, and it's part of it used to be better, but the way those Noah guys came in and wrestled, like Kenta was already pretty much a spent force by the time he got to the WWF, man. Like, and the fucking Nigel references the Glory by Honor match with Bryan Danielson.
He does.
And you just look at that, and that's God bless Danielson, but when the other shoe drops with him, with all the matches he's had like that, it may never do that. But like the point is, when you wrestle that physically like Kenta did, by the time he got to the WWF, and then on top of that, he's getting brain fucked by their system of like, So when he was announced to wrestle Bobby Roode, who at that point was like, the fucking Nick Bockwinkel of NXT in the sense of like, I'm going to talk you down and then I'm going to have these matches that I'm going to wrestle circles around you. But the reason everyone was watching NXT at that point in time was shit like fucking DIY and Asuka and like the really high work rate shit. And I remember like getting really into that TV program he did with Hero too, and I remember how divisive it was because people were like, "What was this?" It was like, it's an old style fucking pro wrestling title match, dude. Like, what do you expect from it? So the whole thing is like when this was announced, it was like, well, this is probably not going to be good. And I remember watching this live with a few of my local friends here, and look, this ain't you know, Brett Austin from WrestleMania 13 or Warrior Savage or something of that ilk. But like, I was watching it like this is. I think we used the word miracle in the group chat. It's a miracle match, and it really is. Like of something that had no expectation going into it, and an even less level of confidence that it would succeed from the fan base watching it. Because again, everyone who was watching NXT at this point in time knew the shit we're talking about, and so they were like,
Mhm.
what is this going to be?" I think everyone showed up there expecting like Bobby Roode's entrance to be cool, and it was. He had that big piano.
It's one of his better entrances ever, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure.
He comes out just looking like a fucking superstar. Like it could have been, should have been, but it's just wrestled so brilliantly, and like Rude slows it way down and gets to the point where he's making the crowd want it, that they're firing up for like Kenta's comebacks eventually. Because in the very beginning, like Oracle said, they're kind of booing Kenta in favor of Bob Roode. And by the time when Kenta hits the GTS and Roode sells that so perfectly, because like he hits like a sack of shit, and then it's believable that his momentum carried him out of the ring, as opposed to one of those things not now, but like guys of lesser experience may be given something like that and make it look a bit hokey. And in this case, it looks fantastic. The Nigel was in sharp form too, because he does name drop Kenta Kobashi. He wanted to make sure he already talked about Glory by Honor, the Manhattan Center, so got to get a little more street cred. We get some shoulder work, so me and Joel Holbert was happy with what was going on. And I'd forgotten about that spot they do where Kenta goes to drop kick the steps and just like throws his body into it like a bag of potatoes, dude. He throws caution to the wind, and the incredible sell and the just elite finish. That 20 minutes prior to this, no one really thought there was anything left in the tank for Hideo Itami. And then he has a good match, and to the point where a lot of the crowd that's there in attendance was hoping he was going to win. And then even still, the float over where he has to give him the DDT twice. I love that so much, because it's the not even giving him the option to kick out. He's like, I'm going to take you down and then, make sure you're fucking put away. I think this match it's not what I would call like a spectacle. It's not like the street fight we talked about. This match is a testament to what Bobby Roode is capable of. It's one of the more under-celebrated NXT title matches. It's one of those you bring up on Twitter. You'll have people like, in the same mindset of me and Joe being like, it's an insane piece of business. It's, if you've never seen it and you're listening to the sound of my voice right now, I don't want you to confuse this and watch it, and it's not, Osprey and Omega from fucking Wrestle Kingdom or something like that, if that's what you're thinking. But it's just a testament to TJ Hawk once said, the reason fans don't care about your matches is because you don't. And that's Bobby Roode is a living embodiment of, if you're a wrestler, the reason people don't care about you is because you don't. And Bobby Roode can present himself and his matches in a way that you find yourself caring about him. And, I think I don't want to bury Kenta and be mean about it. It's not, I'm not going to say he was wrestling a fucking broom. It's not one of those things. But it's the Bobby Roode show through and through. And to me, like, I would imagine beholden is like a crowning achievement of his career.
The reason it's the Bobby Roode show is because he allows you to think it's the Kenta show. That's why it's so brilliant.
Exactly.
It's not a carry job in the sense that, and I don't even think it is a carry. What I mean is, it's not like, oh my God, look at how he's outworking Kenta. It's not that. Oh, it's like he makes the absolute most of what Kenta had to offer in this point. Now, it isn't just a physical thing, because Kenta obviously is physically beat up, but he's had these moments since leaving WWE, and he had his moments on 205 Live, as Oracle mentioned. The main thing with Kenta at this point was it was very apparent that his confidence was like seriously hurt, and I think you even see his face when he misses that kick early on and the crowd reacts. You can see it on his face, right? It's like he's a guy wrestling his own expectations. He gets to kind of feel like a top guy here on this night. It's a very unique match in a very unique time in NXT. I think at this point I've said enough about it. For like everyone who's watching this is pretty bored of me talking, but I just think there is a vibe and a flavor and like a stylistic middle ground at this point in NXT that is like, to me, is perfection. It's like, it actually feels like the modern evolution of old school pro wrestling, you know? It's like, it isn't doing the nostalgia thing of like, we're doing old wrestling, like NWA Power, but it feels like it's totally rooted in the foundations of the wrestling of yesteryear, you know? It's just this upgrade, it's updated, and that would totally, by like 1 year after this, that was like totally fading away. 2 years after this, it's gone completely.
Yeah.
So it's a sweet spot for me. This match kind of symbolizes that. Unfortunately, it would be the peak of Roode's WWE run, which is like an understatement, right? Like, good Lord. Roderick Strong sends him packing from NXT in their rematch, non-title rematch after he drops the belt to Drew.
Is that Drew match any good? I've only watched it once live.
I don't like it particularly. I think they really struggled to follow the rest of the show. Jumanji Hunter in the chat says he likes the Drew match more than the Hideo match. So maybe, mileage may vary. I don't particularly like it, but I'm not a big Drew Mac guy. I've only recently like kind of turned the corner on him. So the story goes that they thought people would sing the Glorious theme, so that meant he had to be a babyface for some fucking reason. And he comes up as a babyface, and he goes into a program with like Dolph and Baron Corbin for the US belt. And then
he wins the tournament, right?
Yeah, and then as a babyface, he like drops the belt to babyface Randy Orton.
20-minute match for Randy Orton.
Yeah, which
is good.
So I don't think it's very good, but that is like the ultimate like.
I remember not liking it at the time, but like I
love that match. The two guys who had it. I don't know if anyone who watched it liked it. Like, they've both listed that as like one of their personal favorite matches, and I always watch it. I'm like,
they're both workers though, you know.
Exactly, yeah. It's probably like a really easy night, you know, but like watching it is not was not my thing. It's a babyface match. So why the fuck are they having a babyface match? Like, so then at WrestleMania, I was there, still going on that show, as we've often said. 4-way.
Who did he debut against?
Maybe Aiden English or some shit like that.
That sounds right. Yeah, because then I remember he was in that ridiculous Survivor Series tag, but he'd already been on the main roster for a month or two by that point.
Yeah, the Triple H one.
He was like the one non-legend in that match. Remember?
Yep.
Like, everybody else was like a legend in that match. A terrible match.
So,
which one? The Survivor Series one?
Yeah.
No, it's terrible.
All right.
The one with like Shane, Angle, Triple H, Cena, Braun was in there.
Look at Alex.
Okay, hold on. It's on paper one of the most insane lineups you'll ever read. It's
and then the bell rang.
Yeah, exactly. It's Triple H, Angle, Finn, Samoa Joe, and Brown Strongman against John Cena, Randy Orton, Bobby Roode, Shinsuke Nakamura, and Shane McMahon. I mean, that should be the greatest match of all time.
I recently got the Blu-ray because I wanted to have the AJ match, and on the cover it has like 04 Kurt Angle. looking all jacked. So yeah, WrestleMania
terrible, but it does have the. I'm sorry, Joe. It does have the moment where it's like the Looper face-off where Triple H and Bobby Roode are in the ring at the same time, and they have like a.
And they would share the ring again, which we will get to when we talk about other shoutouts. So 2018 WrestleMania 34 fatal 4-way match where Jinder Mahal leaves with the US belt. It's him, Rusev, Orton, and Rude.
There were lots of Rusev chants I recall in that match.
Yeah, Rusev chants got him in the match, I think, even right with the Rusev Day chants. He then floats around. It becomes very apparent that the babyface thing was a mistake. Vince didn't think much of him. He lands in this like weird odd couple tag team with Chad Gable, which never ever clicked as an act, right? It never made sense why they were a team. But it just so happened that this weird little piece of history emerged in late 2018, early 2019, which is our final match of the evening, folks. The Revival versus Bobby Roode and Chad Gable. Now, this is their famous quote-unquote TV match. They had about 5 or 6 TV matches, including main event. The others are all like 5 minutes long. However, they had these alleged classics on the road, right? And this was, I think everyone who's on the screen and I can attest, I'm not making this up. this was a real thing that was talked about at the time, these matches.
Mhm.
There
Oh,
were
yeah.
multiple people. There's one in Canada that multiple people said was 45 minutes long. Now, I don't know if it's 45 minutes, but that was like the word. And the story goes that Arn Anderson, who was the agent on those matches, which fucking rules when you think about the guys in the match, fought for them. And it was like the last hill he died on, was telling Vince, please give these guys time to have a match on TV. And they get 20 minutes here on Monday Night Raw. Grand Rapids, I think, would have rather seen me go out there and do drop downs. I mean, they do not give a shit. It's the last match of the night. It's in hour 3. But they go out there and they have their match. This is the Raw most famous for the Charlotte reveal, the infamous, when Vince brings out Charlotte. Because the segment before this, here's my monthly. Actually, I have 2. Grin, Grappler, Alexa Bliss reference is the segment before this is like Alexa tells Becky to like apologize. I don't know what the fuck. It was Becky had to make a decision and Alexa advised. I don't know, man. And then it cuts to Glorious.
Alexa was having the concussion problems, and she was like was at the Rumble, but then hosted Mania, and
she's just like a character on the show that just like floats around, interacts with other people. So that's
we didn't know how good we had it, Joe.
I know, bro.
I forgot about that Charlotte reveal. That whole build was insane.
There is not a worse setting in history for this feud to have taken place, this FTR Roode and Gable business. But it's here.
Today, brother, if it happened on Raw now, I would be going nuts.
They have the chemistry here and the match they have. I mean, it's a beautiful match. It takes them 18 minutes of the 20 to get the crowd to give a shit, but they get them in the end.
Yeah,
right?
they get them in the last near falls. They get them in the last near falls.
There's something romantic about like that setup. The idea of Arn Anderson sitting watching the monitor praying that this shit would turn out well. I think they did him proud. Bobby, memories of this time, this feud, quote unquote, and then the match. Go for it.
Yeah, it was a tough time to be a Revival fan. They were annoying on Twitter, so that was a lot for some people. Personally, I think they're still very good. But yeah, I mean, I do remember hearing about those house show matches, and I looked it up earlier. There's one on Cage Match. It says like 30 minutes, and they don't usually have times for house shows, so, your mileage may vary. But that was a couple days before this one in Canada, like you were just talking about. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because 2019 WWE is bad.
Yes.
But from like the Rumble to Mania, it's not too bad. Like, the pieces are there. They just kind of
Trophy Mania thing. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. So I mean, it's obviously a great match. I'm glad they got to have it. Like you said, all 4 of them are just working tremendously hard for no reaction. And we talked about it a little bit today. Like, if you put this match on Raw next week, in 2024, like, much different environment, I think. It is what it is. But it's cool. It's a good moment. It's a really good moment for the Revival in particular. Shatter Machine out of nowhere at the end was awesome. But yeah, just Roode and Gable, they're a nice little team, man. And that's kind of what they did with Roode. They did with Ziggler later, where just kind of threw him in tag teams, and they worked.
Dude, the Shatter Machine at the end of this is so sick.
Did we lose Bob?
No, the Oracle of Wrestling has momentarily left us. Bobby's still here, right, Alex?
Yeah.
Did you hear Bob? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, good. Oracle,
yeah,
we're back.
Nope.
Here he is. He's coming back.
I'm back. Yeah.
Unbelievable Shatter Machine to close this. They are so good at coming up with ways to get into that finish. They still do new ones. I don't know, Alex, if you saw the recent one where like Dax like flipped Cash over to get him in position to do the shatter. It was fucking awesome. It was so ridiculous, but it ruled. They have the FTR trunks on here because this is when they're like, this is that point when they're leaning into that because they're fully aware that's where it's inevitably headed, right? So like, why not? Dude, they had this shit figured out by the time we see it on Raw, didn't they? You could tell they were like totally connected. Oracle memories of this this little chapter in history, brother.
I just remember like being like, oh shit, because like we had heard about it, all about the hype. Like, oh, we get to see it. And I was like, I wonder how much time it'll get. Got 20. Match fucking rules, man. Like, fuck the crowd. I don't care. Like, and and they did, and you're right. They did get him the last couple minutes, but like
Hmm.
this shit, man, you could tell the chemistry was there. You could tell that the cap, there's some truth to that loop there. Like they had chemistry here. They had definitely had the practice and yeah, this is killer stuff. I forgot Gable had long hair that late. I thought he had gotten a haircut earlier than that, but
Yeah, me
Weird
too.
look. This altogether for
Yeah.
him is an
Yeah.
odd look.
yeah, it was weird. But yeah, kick-ass match. So one of the things I noticed was Dax looks like he's well here, whereas
God
like
bless. Yeah, I know.
he looks like he's in perpetual pain nowadays.
Bless his
Whereas,
heart.
like
dude.
he looks a little younger with a dark beard and all that. I'm thinking, man, lots changed in 5 years, brother. Still as good as ever, but
Yeah.
a lot's changed in 5 years.
It's like when you watch like Dangerous Alliance on, and then you put on like Nitro on. You're like, oh shit, this has been
Yeah.
there's a few years. Like it's the way he wrestles, right? Like it's just is what it
Yeah.
is, but it's
Yeah,
noticeable.
good shit, man. Like the finish is
Yeah.
great. Like I just remember being like I remember like popping when like I'm like cheering when when Revival won the tag belts and
It's cool.
because this was they'd been finally healthy together for about 6 months on the main roster, and
Mm-hmm.
they'd finally let them get on TV. I mean, the injuries that they had, like we talked about it, but like Cash gets hurt and they come back for like a month, and then Dax gets hurt, and that's just, I mean, anyone wrestling, that's not going to do you any favors, but especially when you're under the umbrella of Vince. Like Vince hated injury prone people so much, so when that
Especially
happened,
when
they
it's
were done.
them,
They were
right?
done. You know,
Short Southern tag team. Like,
they were done. It was over.
yeah, it's a shame. I mean, it worked out, right? Ultimately,
Mhm.
like, Dax did a post about it, and like, look, I know Dax gets a lot of shit for being like the pro AEW guy, but it actually, when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Because imagine they were around in the time where there wasn't a second promotion. It's like they were just fucked, right? Like,
Yep.
what would they have done? Luckily, they've had the whole run they've had since then, but this was like, I think there's something special about this match. If you were doing the top FTR matches now, I don't think this match gets like as high because of like they've had so many matches, right? The Briscoe matches, fuck, like, but I think what's powerful about this match is it actually proves a point in that, like, what at the end of this match, the crowd does react, and it's like, because we have to be clear when we say this match has no heat, it isn't a reflection of the wrestlers. They had no reason to give a shit. The people, this feud didn't exist on TV.
Yeah.
It's
These
like,
four guys had not been presented as someone you were supposed to take seriously on television.
it's like, but look what happened when you give them a chance to have that match. The people got into it. Imagine if that happened more regularly. I don't know. Maybe things would have been different. I don't know. Nonetheless, Alex, I'm intrigued. Did you ever seen this before?
No. If I had, it evaded my brain. No, I would have remembered the dynamic shade of green that FTR wears in this. But I do remember the legend of these matches at the time.
Yes.
Specifically, like
The ladder match. God.
Yeah, great match.
Pam and Mercedes were using their platform too to like post like clips of the match and shit, like from the house shows, and being like, "Oh, this is amazing! Like you should be here. Why isn't this on TV?" I believe it's good. I saw that FTR against Roddy and Kyle match in San Antonio, and it was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And
very jealous of you, that girl.
That was one of those things of Dax is bald, right? He's the one that tried to upload that, and they immediately like copyright strike them. God, what an industry. Anyway, this is fun. It's what we're just talking about. The people had no reason to care. The reason, even that philosophy I said of like, you have to care about yourself for people to care about you. That doesn't work in that situation where you're not even given the opportunity to show people that you're like legitimate. Yeah, the Gable look was not good for me. The long hair with the robe, but then the tights and stuff. I wasn't gelling. God, I wish that Cash and Dax would have just found out how much money it took to keep their old theme. As much as the Midnight Express variant is incredible, that we go hard all day, all
I
night.
can't do it. I can't do it.
Well, I guess the difference of being at some of those NXT house shows where the whole crowd knew all the words and were like singing along to it, that was a lot
Fair.
of fun.
That's fair.
Dude, the fucking commentary too is so, like, you can tell, so fucking
It's
Vince,
awful.
like, yeah, they're fucking
Oh,
nerds.
yeah, I remember
Talk
Michael
about the
Corey
Midnight
whenever-
Express. They like old wrestling. They're fucking geeks.
Have you heard that story where like Vince sat down FTR and was like, "Everyone tells me you're Tully and on. I don't want Tully and on." And they were like, "Fuck." That's like a whole thing.
So yeah, that commentary of them just like, oh, they're a throwback act, like all those words, knowing who was like, in the headset backstage, was like,
Yeah.
this is not good. But yeah, the match is good. Rude, he dropped at this point. He leaned way out when he was with Dolph. He like dropped some mass just in favor of getting really leaned out, and I mean, he still looked great. And yeah, it's a good match. It's just, it might as well have happened in the empty performance center. Like it's it's not even something we can say, well, we've learned since then. We knew it then. Like, yeah, you can have great matches, but if people, like in WWE, if people don't give a shit, then like they haven't been conditioned to think that someone matters. They're not going to care.
Yeah.
That's, this match, if it was 4 guys that no one had ever heard of at CZW in 2003 or Ring of Honor in 06 or some shit, yeah, the crowd probably would have gotten like massively into it. It's just a Monday Night Raw crowd that, at that point, all they were being told to care about was fucking, Seth Rollins and Charlotte Flair. I'm trying to remember who
Baron Corbin.
Yeah, fucking ugh. I like Corbin, but Jesus, that 2019 run, man.
Yeah. It's tough.
But
The Constable.
to bring it back to our subject matter, there's a very clear sense of ring generalship here from Bobby Roode, and obviously the FTR are masters of this. We know this now. So I think putting this match together with the 4 of them and just Gable's ability was probably a lot of fun for those guys. And Bobby Roode, the evolution of just with these 6 matches that we've watched is fascinating. It's just a shame that their system was so broken, and still is in many ways. But like very much so at that point in time, because of who was running it was a fucking maniac that just cared about, Charlotte Flair and Brock Lesnar. And so it is like a testament to some of the improvements that have been made since then, if I guess you could say, from the way, AEW presents wrestling, but also WWF has gotten better about people caring more about, mid-card matches. I mean, we still see they wheel people out there that, and so I don't know who the fuck this is, but
Right.
I love the idea. I love the spirit of it. It's just something that wasn't going to work on Monday Night Raw in February of 2019. But for the purposes of what we did, there was discussion that came from it, and a good performance by all involved.
Yeah, I always loved the chemistry of Dax and Gable in particular. They always had these cool spots going back to the American Alpha matches, which were great. Obviously, I know Dax has talked a lot about Gable being one of his favorite, because I think Gable is the natural talent among 4 veterans here, right? And they make a point of showcasing. He gets the big moonsault to the floor into the ad break. I love that spot. It was a Roode and Gable staple. I'm sure they stole it from someone that I'm not aware of, or that I haven't seen anyway. You know the deal where Roode like baits the guys into Gable's big dive? He like pulls them into. They would do that in like all of their matches. When I watched them all front to back, that was a common one. How great is that momentum shift where they like guillotine Gable on the top rope? You know, when Dax like throws him up and Cash brings him down. My goodness, it was there was some spectacular stuff here. So much so that honestly, like the people had no choice but just respond. Right, some of those near falls, but down the stretch, I love the blockbuster German suplex combo that Gable and Roode had. Gable and Roode is one of those things of like, that team in ring is sweet. It's just they were given no reason to be a team, and they didn't really make sense as a team. But they had these matches because they could go. So it's fun.
I had
like
zero recollection of them having the tag belts, and so when they came out with them, I'm like,
it's like a really. I agree with you, Alex, about the evolution of it, because Roode is like totally the veteran here. Like obviously FTR, but Rude is totally the guy. His role is almost showcasing Gable. I don't know if that was the intention. I just think that's the way that he approached it, because why wouldn't he, right? He's the older guy here. So, yeah, it's a cool one. It's a time that I like a little feud that I kind of cherish just the idea of more than anything else. Hopefully one day Dax the Axe can allow the world to see. I'm sure he has the footage. Also, if he's watching, we still need that Tokyo Good Brothers match. You remember this story? We're talking about house show story. The match that inspired Seth Rollins to tweet WWE is the best wrestling in the world. Dude, listen. I have watched like every Good Brothers match, and I don't know if there's ever been a good one. And I say that as like their biggest fan. You need to get me this footage. The idea they had a match that good pops me tremendously. Sealing a 3 1/4, bro. We're keeping it a buck, right? How good could this match have been? I want to find out.
It's like
Give me the footage.
The Flair Giant Gonzalez house show match that Dave gave 3 stars.
I don't know about that, but like the thing with genuinely, the thing with the Good Brothers is, I always joke this for Oracle. 2 1/4 floor, 3 1/4 ceiling. They are very steady, right? They could give Bob and I just a match, but they don't. They very seldom have matches where you go, "Oh my god, the Good Brothers! They tore it up out there. They rocked it." I need to fucking see this thing, man. It sounds like something I need to have on my wall or something. I don't know. Anyway,
I'm thinking about Tape's description of Doc's punches, cane slaps.
I saw that Christmas, a couple days after Christmas at a house show in Houston. It was the GBs against who's the model tag team?
Pretty Deadly.
Pretty Deadly.
Yeah.
Pretty deadly.
Gallows got tagged, did 3 clotheslines and tagged out. And I was just like, yes, like this is
in
what
the
I
world,
live
bro.
for.
Best in the world. All right. Okay. So following this run here, by the time WrestleMania comes around, Roode and Gable are in the Battle Royal, I'm pretty sure, right? Because Hawkins and Ryder win the tag belts famously. Bob was there.
Yep.
Bob, you popped on that finish, right?
I didn't love it. Really unfortunate start to what would end up being a pretty unfortunate night, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Well, it was obvious they were going to win. I'm not saying it's a good thing.
Yeah, it was.
Kurt Hawkins, they'd made it.
Well, it was obvious that Rollins was going to win too, but like, come on.
Oh yeah, the 2-minute match.
Yeah.
It was his fault. He wanted to go home.
With Alexa Bliss snapping her fingers and Terry came out.
Yeah, it wasn't all bad,
Yep.
Bob. There you go. Yeah. Did Alexa do anything else? She was the host, right? She didn't just come out for Hulk Hogan.
She
had
snapped
a
her
back-
fingers and Terry Hulk Hogan Balea came out.
Yeah,
Brother.
she had a backstage segment with Hall and Nash.
You notice that he didn't let Alexa. He didn't let Alexa get behind him. That's the big thing.
True.
Like he just kind of backed out.
Dude, do you remember there was like one of the documentaries that Hogan did the bit about like she was like hugging the camera, he said, and he framed it as a joke, but was like very clearly upset that she stood in front of him.
Dude, Drew and Roman had that stinker on that show too.
Yeah,
that
that
is
was bad.
not a good WrestleMania. That's
Yeah.
every year when the discussion comes up, people argue that it's better than
Listen,
9 or 11.
35 is the longest show in the history of the United States.
That's why when people, I'm like,
Other
dude,
than Ian Rotten shows, it's the longest show.
Kofi and Bryan is amazing.
Kofi
Oh,
and
no.
Bryan's
That's
great.
incredible.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, when people are like 9's the worst, I'm like, that show's 2 hours and 40 minutes. I will watch that before I fucking watch the
It's-
7-hour manias.
It's the worst.
Just
It's-
without, minus the pre-show.
That's ridiculous.
Yep.
It's by far the worst AJ and Randy match too. It's their worst match. It's because the crowd just cheers about the lights the whole time. Their TV matches are way better than that.
And then Randy had the great Instagram post after the.
Oh, he was
I
so
heard-
mad.
What did you say? We had a classic, but I heard that people couldn't see it or something.
Yeah, because they were supposed to go on first too. And then Brock obviously just wanted to go home.
He said Triple H went like 30 minutes, and they did the nose ring spot.
Oh yeah, that was a long one.
Yeah.
So as Paul Lee took over Raw, Rude was paired with Ziggler, and they were going to be kind of like a work rate heel tag team. The Dirty Dogs. The Dirty Dogs name, I don't know if that was ever like canon or that was just the thing that Dolph called them.
No,
I don't actually know.
It did become canon.
Okay, good.
Because
They had some
I
nice
vaguely
matches,
remember. I mean, of course, it's Pat, but like I vaguely remember Pat McAfee, like in his first commentary
Right.
run, which I actually kind of liked him. Now I don't, but
Yeah.
in his first comment, he would go the Dirty Dogs, or he'd like pop for him and stuff.
With
Yeah.
the Aries tag team, were they actually called the Dirty Heels, or did they just call
Yeah.
themselves?
Oh yeah, on TNA they just fuck it. The heels, right? That was after Heel Ziggler too. That was in vogue at the
Yeah,
time.
Dirty Heels or the Dirty Dogs are good though, man. Rude and Ziggler
They were a good team. They had some good matches. It's a shame that a lot of their stuff was in the
the
pandemic
Street
era.
Profits feud and the Mysterio's feuds are both
Yep.
good. That Mysterio's match at fucking it was in the
Backlash?
Thunderdome, but the match was great. Like
Yeah,
it
the
was,
one that's like a handicap
the
match, right?
Backlash, WrestleMania
Yeah.
Backlash. That was great.
Really good.
You're saying things, Devin, that I'm just like, okay, I don't believe you that they happened, but
they
they
were,
very well could have.
dude. They really were good.
Yeah.
I think I'm allowed. I don't know, but I remember hearing that when Triple H got the pencil, there was like a genuine, like he was going to actually do like crazy things with Bobby Roode, and I believe it because he loved Bobby. But unfortunately, the timeline was such. Bobby had, I think he worked Omos on a house show loop, and his neck got messed up again, and he went off to have surgery, and that's that. Like he's not that book is closed, you know.
Say what you will about Paul, and you would be right. Levesque, that is. One of the best things he's done as a booker is the presentation of Bobby Roode. He's a guy that, for very obvious reasons, he saw himself in him and like,
Yeah,
you know how to present him. Yeah, someone talked about the TNA chance. That tag match I saw in NXT, the Joe Roode team were met with TNA chants while there were dueling New Japan chants for the team of Nakamura and Finn Balor.
wow. What a time, huh? My goodness. So Bobby Roode is, as much as he has been forced into retirement in terms of a full-time wrestler, it is still nice that as of recording this now, I think it's fair to say he's still a positive, a happy story in the grand scheme of things. Look, did he make the money he should have made? No. Did it work out the way I'm sure he hoped it would on the main roster? No. He doesn't strike me as someone that really gives a fuck, quite frankly. He just produced and agented The Rock's return to the ring at WrestleMania. In fear of being scoops to Bing Bong here, I'm breaking you news on this one. The word is that he is fucking incredible as an agent. That's the belief. And I don't think I'm breaking any news. Look at the matches they're giving him. Like, it's pretty obvious. He's climbed the ladder really quickly. Think of the Triple H thing. I don't think it makes, will shock anyone. Hopefully, in 20 years, if people are watching this, he still has that gig, right? That can absolutely happen there. And that's a cool thing. Like, I think it's increasingly likely that he may be kind of lost to history as an actual what he was capable of. But listen, bro, we've done enough of these Grin Grapplers to know there's a much worse ending to the story than gets a sweet gig as an agent and stays in the industry in a healthy way. So I think that's like a worthwhile thing to note. Now, before we get into our final thoughts and pick next month's Grappler, any other matches to call out from that? I need to again reiterate the Roddy Strong match. Check out the review, folks. It'll be linked below. But I need to note that Shinsuke, the first one we talked about. I have a couple quirky ones, but any of you guys would like to shout out?
I don't know if that. I was trying to think. They never moved the Hidden Gems over to Peacock, did they?
Nope.
Yeah,
Jesus.
so that Ibushi match is on the network, and our friend and Twitter legend John Bolo Keating was in attendance at that show, and for a long time it was like his match of like, oh, I wish there was a fan cam, and then it came out like with a full produced cut of it. That's the show that was the last match Ibushi worked for the WWF, like basically just from booking to booking with them. And the main event of that house show was Nakamura, Eric Young, and Samoa Joe in a triple threat match.
Oh my god!
What a time to be alive! But yeah, we mentioned Oracle did a good job there of filling in the WWF or the main roster run. I didn't know about that, but Nakamura, Roddy Strong, Cassius Ohno match. He had a good match with Oni Lorcan, who we mentioned earlier. There was that like 3-year stretch where everyone that touched that guy had a great match. So, the idea that, in 2012, that Bound for Glory street fight, the idea of like telling someone after that match, in 5 years, that guy is going to wrestle Shinsuke Nakamura, Kenta, and Kota Ibushi in a WWF ring. What? A fascinating catalog, as we've detailed a lot along the way. He wrestled like all the work rate guys of the day, but then also was wrestling fucking Sting and Kurt Angle, and then he gets to the WWE and all over the place with the guys he was wrestling.
Absolutely. Couple house show ones want to call out that you can't watch, but pop me. Well, you can watch one of them. So one I was in attendance for. This is June 2017. Aleister Black and Drew McIntyre over Andrade and Bobby Roode, clocking in at 21 minutes.
Wow.
Hell yeah.
Brother, the crowd work of Bob Roode on that night in Brighton, England. He didn't bump, I think, till the 18th minute of that son of a bitch. It was great. Meanwhile, on that show for the tag belts, Riddick Moss and Tino Sabatelli fell slightly short against the Authors of Pain. I recall that one not being quite a classic. All right, this was the Triple H one I mentioned. This is Triple H's last, I think, official match. I think he had a fight, quote unquote, with Randy Orton on Pandemic Raw, but his last official match, I'm pretty sure this is it, and this is kind of poetic. Shinsuke Nakamura and Triple H versus Robert Roode and Samoa Joe, Tokyo, Japan. 3 NXT champs.
When was this?
2019. The same tour where Triple H teamed up with the Good Brothers and AJ on the other night.
His last televised match was against Randy too, right, at Saudi?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was the same show of Taker Goldberg, which we covered on here.
Yeah.
What a match. Check that one out in the archives.
We talked about Taker Goldberg. Worth it.
Check it out.
I know 0. whatever that cage match. That match is like 4 stars, brother.
The Tokyo match with the NXT champs is on YouTube. There's a fan cam, and Triple H gets like a hilarious pop. Also, I have to note, I tweet about it once a week. Here it is, Louisville, Kentucky, July 16th, 2016. American Alpha, Finn Balor, Shinsuke Nakamura, and Bayley versus Bobby Roode, Samoa Joe, The Revival, and Alexa Bliss. It used to be better, fellas. That's all I have to say. It used to be better. There is some footage of that out there. So there's some matches to know. Anything else? This is a good one that we should have brought this up because it actually is crazy. It's Hogan's last match, right? The house show match in the UK that Hogan won.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what the lineup is because that's the one I think Hogan comes out to fucking Eye of the Tiger for.
Eye of the Tiger. Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I think that covers pretty much all of it, though, right? Anything else to call out? Any matches, fellas?
Yeah, I don't think so.
All right.
Willie pointed it out. I think the match with Braun a couple weeks before Braun Ziggler in LA it was good. Like, it's not great, but it's worth checking out if you like those two guys.
The Dillinger match is good too. The Ultimate Solid Pros match, those two fellas. All right. So I actually had the chance. Go, mate.
Hogan, Cowboy James Storm, and Sting against Bobby Roode, Bully Ray, and Kurt Angle.
Oh, please.
TNA, brother. Probably a good house too, UK. So I had the chance on Grin Grappler, on the Roddy Strong match review that was posted earlier to kind of like talk a big picture about the legacy of Bobby Roode, whatever that may be. So I'll throw this around to you guys, but the main thing that stands out to me is I think he should probably be most remembered as one of the premier tag team workers of his generation. I think, you got him, Claudio, right? Like, I think they're the guys. There's a couple others. James Storm. I think, there's a couple guys. He's certainly in the conversation. I think that, like, if you look at his actual catalog, as I said, I think it's a lot deeper than your memory may suggest. I'm not sure he'll because of where he was popular and where he was pushed, I'm not sure folks will quite realize that he had a couple moments there where he was a big deal. Go watch that takeover entrance that we were talking about earlier, brother. He feels like a god walking out there in Chicago, right? Like, he's a fascinating grappler to add to the archives. So I'll circle back in a moment, but I would like to throw it around. Bobby, any final thoughts on Bobby Roode?
Yeah, it's interesting. We kind of talked about at the beginning where like the two kind of major moments that he had were in promotions where people might not have been following. It wasn't the kind of main event story, but like overall, tremendous career, underrated guy, and really the type of guy that this sort of show is meant for. If you go back and look at the 2 years that we've done, it's all these guys that like you knew were good, but then we dive deeper and turns out they were more than good. And with the agent thing now, he's probably set for as long as he wants that job. I think Triple H is a big fan of his, as we are aware, and like you said, he seems good at it. So like, and it kind of felt natural that he was going to be good at it, just with how he wrestles and how he lays out his matches. Like, I'm not surprised that he's good at it.
Yeah, me either. It felt like a very natural fit as a fan, at least, and that's what we've heard thus far. So hopefully that's saying that could kind of be a second career, and can be a positive, continuation of his wrestling career. Oracle, final thoughts. Bobby Roode, brother, go for it.
Yeah, just a one of those workers, Total Pro, Ring General. Just watching him, just not a lot of flash, but knew how to play the role of a heel really well. Very old school in that way. Just as a tag worker, one of the best, one of the 4 or 5 best in the last 25 years or so.
Yeah.
Just had tremendous mechanics, great timing. Just like I don't know. It's just one of those guys where sounds kind of cliche, but he rarely messed up.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one of those. I keep going back to it like a broken record, but he really was just a guy that was the sort of consummate pro who is often overlooked, partly because of all those guys are, but also because he's his best opportunities were in TNA.
And, circumstances.
Exactly, circumstantial, but like. And he's absolutely somebody who has much more of a nice little, story, some of the others we've covered. So, I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world to be an agent for a Rock match,
Right.
he's doing pretty well for himself, but he also had a very, very solid and to be honest, really a strong career. I mean, he got to be top guy in the last year that TNA was ever really anything in 2012. And he got to be the top guy in NXT when it was unbelievably hot, in 2017 when it was the biggest thing stateside. So I mean, he had an awesome career, really. Not one that is talked about enough, but is I would say certainly undervalued.
Yeah, it's one of those cases where you can over focus on what could have been, but you should never take for granted like what was, right? He did some really cool things. Like, as we said, Alex saw him main event a paper with Sting, dude. That's pretty sick, Like, he had a hell of a career. I agree. He had almost 2 decades on the national stage as an in-ring. Like, that's good. So, yeah, I agree completely. Alex, any closing thoughts on Bobby Roode?
I mean, Bobby and Oracle kind of laid out the mechanics and the gist of it all, but it's I would proffer that Bobby Roode is someone that a lot of wrestlers should try to be more like today. I mean, obviously, in an ideal world, everyone should try to be like what Roman Reigns has been for the past 5 years, but that's just not the path for everyone. What I mean by that is, like, to my knowledge, Bobby Roode's never been fucking weird on social media. He's never
very quiet. Yeah, I don't really get a lot from Bobby Roode, yeah.
But that's so many people in today's wrestling and just in general with the internet and like sports and movies, they so undervalue presenting themselves as a star. And I remember Meltzer saying that about Bobby Roode, even through like the Dirty Dogs thing of like, he still walks, talks, and presents like you see him and you think he's a star. And like and he did that, like I said, in TNA when he was the only guy left. Like by the time AJ had gone, like he was the only guy that was one of their homegrown guys that could be on TV with Kurt Angle, Sting, Bobby Lashley, whoever. And it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like he belongs in the same like breath as those guys. Being a consistently like solid performer and whatnot is also, it helps, and taking what he does seriously helps. But like, to me, he's just kind of a lesson of how it's done, literally from bell to bell. And then all of like it could just be also that he's just like a really kind of like laid back guy, and he's a lot better than most people in pro wrestling at separating the business. This is what I do as my job, from like, oh, I got to get a tattoo that says I love this company. And like,
what a mistake.
He did an episode of Ride Along with AJ. You guys remember that show, Ride Along?
Mm-hmm.
And he's so just like matter of fact. He's like talking about how strict his diet is and shit. And it just sounds to me like, sounds like hell. Like, all the stuff he has to like hold himself back from eating and whatnot. But I think Bobby Roode is not necessarily the greatest wrestler of all time. He's not the greatest wrestler we've ever covered on this. But to me, he is a modern example of what guys should strive to be. And goddamn, crazy catalog of matches, and good ones too. Like we said, TNA is whatever, we joke about it, but it's literally a company that has 22 years worth of matches, and 2 of them we discussed today here would arguably be in their top 10 matches or top 20, and they both involve Bobby Roode. So
he should definitely get cited more as like an all-time TNA guy. It feels like that when you see people do the Mount Rushmore stuff, it feels like he totally falls through the crack. Him and Storm both should be brought up more, I feel. But
oh yeah,
I don't know. I'm not an expert on the Mount. 2 things to your point. So I noted this down earlier. You talk about carrying himself like a star. I'm sorry to quote Bruce Pritchard twice on one show, folks, but it is what it is. Bruce, his episodes about TNA, as Bob couldn't attest, were extraordinary. Extraordinary. Yep. And at the end, he did word association. And most of the answers were complicated. Like James Storm, for example, he loved, but he talked about how inconsistent James was, and he would sometimes not be particularly into it. And to be fair, if you watch James Storm in the 2010s, it's pretty apparent that there's times where he don't really give a shit, right? And you know what the word was when Bobby Roode came out? There was one word he responded with, and I think it told a tale. All these complicated kind of up and down answers. Bobby Roode, his answer was champ. And Conrad kind of asked him to expand, and he was just like, he was the guy. Like he was he was our rock in that way. Not the rock. I mean, he was like a steadying force. Yeah. He's the champ. And I think for us fucking losers, there is a charm to the idea of a guy just exuding that energy. That's our champ right there. Like, look. Our business is down. There ain't more than 400 people for that night, but Bobby Roode's defending the belt in the house show main event, and we'll be okay. Like, I think there's something to that, even if he was leading a team that would ultimately, their destiny had already been, it was where it was, right? They wouldn't, it had been decided. I think it's very cool that they had that little era of like revival, pun intended, with Bobby at the helm. So I think that stands out. Also, on a personal note, because we don't hear almost anything about Bobby Roode. He did a recent interview with Chris Van Vliet, and it was like the most like non-headline worthy interview ever. Like just Bob sitting there talking about producing. Jeff Jarrett told a cool story, which is why I'm wearing the Sting shirt today. Jeff Jarrett said that on the day of Revolution, Bobby Roode texted him and said, "Give Sting a hug for me and congratulate him." And I thought that was a nice kind of, you forget, right? Like, I think people online focus so much on the whole shit with the companies. When a guy like Sting retires, folks, the wrestling world like stops. Trust me, everyone watched that shit. Like they followed along. I can promise you. They may not have bought the pay-per-view. They're very aware about.
I remember because WWE even is like, first of all, they're doing a fucking TNA World Champion is wrestling for an NXT title
in
2 weeks.
Yeah,
and like,
World.
Yeah, and the night after the Sting match, Michael Cole's like, we want to,
shout out, yeah.
That's shout out, Sting and for his retirement, and Pat McAfee's like, what a match.
I think wrestling has a long way to go. I think that stuff should be even more normalized than it is. But that was a nice step, right? Like that was cool.
It's one thing to promote the other companies. Another thing to actually acknowledge that something else exists outside of the fuck. WWE's biggest problem under Vince was that nothing else existed besides them.
It's silly. Yeah, it's silly.
It's embarrassing. That's my least favorite trope that they did. Because of racism and the sexism and all that.
I get, but it's insulting. I get you. But it popped me when Jarrett told the story because we get very little read on who the person Bobby Roode is, and I just like the idea of him kind of cherishing those memories with Sting. When he wrestled Sting, he probably thought he was going to be one of the last guys that Sting worked, and Sting ended up wrestling beyond him. It's remarkable. So that was a cool story. But there it is, folks. Another grappler in the Grin Grappler archives, Bobby Roode.
For future episodes, Joey, when you do your Bruce Pritchard impression, you have to talk way more condescendingly and make sure that everyone knows that you think they're beneath you.
You know how I do
I
before you start on your spiel too. Didn't you always do that?
Every month I always work in the I always work in the Alexa reference every month. With Bruce, I need to make sure I don't. That was too many for the year. I think I have to make it 2025 before I don't know Bruce. It just fit. It did pop me the way he was like, champ. He's like, fuck yeah, man. I'm with you. We agree. All right, there it is. Bobby Roode. Let's look ahead here, folks. We've gone long, but we've had a great time. Let's look at June. Let's look at our next Grin Grappler. We got some modern options. Some very modern options on the board. There's not a ton of historical names to my eye in June. We have two gentlemen who recently shared a famed, very rare 5-star match in the Wrestling Observer. We have both the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes, and we also have the famed, phenomenal AJ Styles. We have the current reigning and defending SmackDown or WWE Women's Champion. We have Bayley.
Pam.
Which at this point, dude, NXT, heel Bayley, and then maybe you circle back, or maybe you do babyface Bayley on the main roster. You could do some of the tag stuff. There's you could definitely do an episode there. We have a guy
dip into some shimmer matches.
Well, we have a guy that I'm not a huge fan of, but I think will be an interesting episode because he's in career form. Probably a little soon, but I'll mention him nonetheless. We have Drew McIntyre. And then we have the favorite, because he's the historical figure among these options. We have the famed Mick Foley, Mrs. Foley's baby boy. So, an interesting month. Now, my concern with an AJ Styles episode is the same as the Bryan Danielson one, which is, what is there left to say?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's just...
We'd have to make it creative like the Brett one, right?
Yeah.
We'd have to do something creative like the Brett one.
Foley is in a similar category, but because he's retired, it feels like he's less like something we talk about. We talk about AJ still. He had a great match a month ago, He's going to have another one, I'm pretty sure, soon, because I don't think he's done with Cody. So Foley stands out to me. I'm intrigued by Bayley. Cody is in the middle of his story, but he also did just finish a story famously. So I don't know. Bob, where do your mind go on this one?
So right away it goes to Foley. That's just because it's such a deep catalog there, and he's genuinely, I say this about a lot of guys, but probably one of my 5 favorite wrestlers ever. And it's just Cody, we've kind of covered the whole third act, because the third act will probably be going back to WWE. We've kind of covered that all in real time. Yeah. Bayley, there's a lot there too. Drew, maybe because there's TNA stuff or whatever that I haven't seen, but I would go with Foley.
So Drew would be WWE, Indie / TNA WWE, right? That'd be the Axe.
Yeah.
Bailey would be NXT, babyface Bailey on the main roster, because while the creative suck, she has good matches.
Yeah.
And then heel Bailey. Cody would be WWE, AEW, WWE. AJ, I guess, would be like TNA, New Japan, WWE, I guess. I don't know. Oracle, what do you make of this lineup here?
I'd be down for AJ, regardless of anyway. But I mean, we probably would want to take a creative stance on it.
Yeah.
Foley is honestly the most interesting. I actually think Drew's pretty interesting too. But I love Drew McIntyre, always have, and I know you're not like.
Mm-hmm. But I'm happy to do it. And he's, dude, like
I would say I would pick Foley. Because I mean, I'm not going to pass up on like, I don't know. There's some good ass shit from like early '90s WCW and
yeah. So would we do WCW? Would you do ECW as an act or not?
I don't know. It would be kind of like he has really good stuff in ECW, but like I don't know. I'd probably rather do 2 WCW matches, but like we could do 1 WCW and an ECW, and then 2 WWF, and then 2 like after 2000.
Mm-hmm. That'd be interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a few different ways to do that, right? A few different ways. That'd be interesting. Alex, what are you thinking here?
Like everyone playing along with this as though Joe didn't bully us earlier today in the group chat saying, this is what we're picking. Just pretend like it's a discussion. All right. Came in there talking about Foley and whatnot. Yeah, my book's kind of closed with Cody right now. I can't reopen that quite yet just due to like how much emotion went into that. AJ sitting around talking for 3 hours about how great AJ Styles is you know,
we do that every month.
Exactly. Like that's something we've already done. And then Bailey is like, I don't know. I would like to enter another female into the Grin Grappler halls. Maybe we can shoot for making that a goal for like the July episode, finding someone to do. Because with Bailey, sorry, I love Pam, but I don't think her catalog's deep enough to necessitate that. So yeah, Foley. Hilariously, I think that this might, if we do Foley, that's going to be the one that I think will be the most chippy about when putting the match listing together in the group chat.
We'll talk about it afterwards, and me and Alex yell at each other for an hour.
So Foley, we think, right? Foley, we're gonna go with.
Yeah, I think Foley is the number 1 pick. I think we're going to go Foley, but I think Drew is also interesting. But I think Foley's the best pick here.
No, we're not doing any TNA stuff with Foley. That's
no.
Okay. All right.
The last match we could do is the Orton match, probably, right?
Yeah, and a problem with well, actually, I would propose over that because that match is so celebrated. We close with the WrestleMania 20 Rock and Sock Evolution match because that match is kind of underrated.
And we should save it, Alex, for the. I know you're really looking forward to doing the Randy Orton Grin Grappler. We should save the Foley match for that.
Oh
right?
yeah, that's right. The thing with Drew that my mind immediately went to is like we don't need to do any Brock Lesnar matches anytime soon, and that would be one that we would have to do if we did a Drew McIntyre one. So,
yeah, Drew's probably one that we should let breathe because there's a good chance that he's in the midst of the run that will actually define his career. So it's
a year from now, we could be talking about God. Remember that Drew McIntyre CM Punk match? So, where Punk tried to do something he couldn't do and injured himself.
Dude, that's like you joke, but that match might be fucking awesome, man.
I believe it. That's like that match right now is the hottest match they have to do. Like in terms of Roman Reigns versus Solo Sikoa. Suck my ass. Fuck off, dude. Like that's
Jesus.
I'm sorry. I've been seeing people talk about that too much recently.
This is a family show about Bobby Roode.
That's why I changed it to ass there. I thought that was more TV 14.
Breakdown live. I don't know.
Dude, that's Yes, Jumanji Hunter. That match with Brock's awesome. It's just there's no point in celebrating Brock at this point.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I've just been seeing people on Twitter all week looking forward to seeing Roman Reigns wrestle in the 4th match on the card at SummerSlam. Fuck off. All right.
So Mick Foley.
Let's do it.
Mick Foley. All right, there you go, folks. Mick Foley, lock it in. That'll be your June Grin Grappler. Now, what Alex was referring to, I'm going to float this out there. I want to see what the masses think. We have a blank slate for this Friday's Late Night Grin, which I'm okay with. Dynamite is going to be eventful. There was 2 pay-per-views on the past weekend. I think we can safely get through 2 hours of wrestling talk without a format, without killing the program. I think we can do it. However, 2 straight weeks of that sounds like a deal with the devil. I think we should be very careful. June 7th is Mick Foley's birthday. And I wonder if maybe, just maybe, we should revisit that episode of Monday Night Raw. You know the episode I'm talking about. That'll put butts in seats. I wonder what that would be like as a grin. I don't know. I haven't seen the episode. I've never seen it. I've seen the match, but I haven't seen the episode. We may do that as a grin along on June 7th. I don't know what the lineup would be. I don't know who would be on it, but I think it could be fun. Raw. How long was Raw back then? 2 hours. So
2 hours, yeah.
Yeah.
So probably be an hour and a half, maybe. We'll see. Let's see how we do on Friday, but that's something to look for. We may do that. I know that fuck it, we'll just do the whole schedule here. Yes, Alex?
that was January 4th. So it was the same day as Wrestle Kingdom of that year, which was headlined by Keiji Muto and Scott Norton.
You can watch that if you want.
Yeah, there you go.
Imagine if we got Nick on here.
Yeah. No, actually.
Oh, that'd be a terrible idea.
June 21st, I have penciled in, without asking anyone, I have penciled in Slammiversary 2009 because the poster is Jeff Jarrett.
A ladder match together.
Yes, exactly. King of the Mountain.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yep. July 12th, Contrarian Alex is booked officially. I sent him his contract. He hasn't signed it yet. For a Prestige Wrestling watch along. Shout out IWTV. Timothy Thatcher versus Roderick Strong. Lock in.
What's the significance of Slammiversary?
It'll just be the anniversary, and it's funny.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Christopher Daniels wrestled Shane Douglas on that show, so.
No, we're talking. Yeah. That's when he does that run where he tries to take Chris's job.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So these are things we're looking at, because if we leave ourselves with shows that have no formats to about wrestling, we're going to kill the late night grin again. We can't do that. We have to have an outline on these things. So stay tuned. I'm going to talk to the guys and see what everyone thinks.
It's probably best to have an organization here, folks. The occasional shit's going to be fun.
Yeah.
But we did that for 4 hours for 2 or 3 months at a time, and it was very stupid.
Exactly. Yeah, we've been very careful. Been very careful this time. Right, folks, we've gone 3 hours and 8 minutes. This is longer than Raw. We're going to go home now, okay? We hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, please leave a thumbs up, subscribe, and leave a comment. All those wonderful things you can do around here. Watch my match review. Bobby, do you have any plugs, promotions?
No, I don't think so. Late Night Grin this Friday. I probably will not be there, but I'll be there for the next probably 6 or 7 after that. So look forward to that. It's Jack Crosby's birthday on Friday, so wish him happy birthday as well, or don't.
Yep. Jack may show up on Friday. He's Mrs. Crosby is throwing a party, and he will be very drunk.
Him it's a public platform.
Yes, so he has to be drunk, but not too drunk, and he'll be on the show. If not, we will try and talk about wrestling for 2 hours. Pray for us. Oracle, any plugs?
No, not really. I'll probably take, I don't know. It probably makes, I think I have my parents, because my nephew's first birthday is on June 8th. So I think my family's coming up that Friday, June 7th. So I might not be here for the $14.99 Raw watch along, but I will probably be here this Friday night. And then I will return and try to jump on. I might be late for that one, but I'll be on for Clash of the Castle preview in a couple weeks. But I might not show up till the last hour. But I'll be there for it.
All good.
All good. At least.
Okay. So, folks, tell us. Use the Twitter. Tell me what you think of these watch-along ideas, because I don't know. I don't know if people give a fuck. I'm just trying to come up with a schedule because we're back to weekly now and we're trying to save the platform.
We got some irons in the fire. We got some potential ideas.
We
Yep,
do.
we're not leaking. Yeah,
we do.
Mm-hmm.
We've got some stuff ahead of us. Fire being apt, right, Alex? But anyway,
hey.
that'll make sense to people in 3 months. They're going to go, what a fucking smart guy that Holbert is. Anyway, Alex, speaking of smart guys, what's happening over on the Contrarians?
We can drag this out for another 45 minutes, man. We can ring in my birthday together talking about Bobby Roode.
Shit. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to do that anyway. Just people ain't going to watch it.
Yeah.
We're definitely going to do that. That's
off
light
screen,
work, bro.
talking about scoops and whatnot. Okay. Well, so the Contrarians, anyone within the sound of my voice, if you're listening to this live right now or tomorrow, anytime before June 1st, we are so fortunate for the 5th year, I believe we've done this. We're part of the live stream for The Cure, which is a multi-day online event of creators coming together for a goal of raising X amount of dollars for cancer research. In the past, they've raised $10,000-$20,000, and it varies. It's not all film stuff. Julio and I have an hour block on Saturday at 4 p.m. Central Time, 5 p.m. Eastern. During our block, we're trying to raise $1,000, and we've got goodies and trinkets and all that for donations along the way. But this is going on for the remainder of this week. On Twitter, it's at livestream4cure. That's the number 4. And also livestream4thecure.com, all spelled out. You can visit. In total, they've raised close to $100,000 in the 7 years they've been doing it for cancer research. So it doesn't have to be during our hour, but if y'all got $5 or something or some money to throw their way, definitely check them out. It's a lot of what they do too is very free form like this. They've got a chat going, and it's a lot of bullshitting and whatnot. For our hour, Julio and I will be talking about Disney movies and basically just doing like audience participation and how we would handle a Disney movie if it was thrown our way. So that's what's coming up. Please support it. Like I said, that's not a plug for our shit. If you want to watch our hour, that's great. But otherwise, check that out. Support them if you can. So again, livestream4thecure.com, and they'll be on Twitch. Nick is the guy running it. He's a maniac. By Saturday, by the time we're on, he's going to be so sleep deprived that he's a wrestling fan too, though. So it may veer off into dangerous territory by the time I get on there. So as always, I love so dearly being on here. So thank you for allowing me to come on and peddle my wares.
Always, brother. We love having you. This has been Grin Grappler, Bobby Roode. This Friday, we're back with the aforementioned blank slate that could kill the platform. Please do join us live. I don't know what time slot. I don't have Rampages on, but we'll update you on the Twitter gimmick. We hope you've enjoyed this. You remember those things I said, the like, the subscribe, the comment. They help. Do them if you want. Watch my match review. Tope Suicida is a great editor. Don't tell him I told you that. Get back to me on those grin along ideas. But most importantly, keep grinning and enjoy this snazzy outro, folks. Have a great night. Goodbye, everybody.